What is up, everyone? Please take a second to hit that like button. The more likes that we get in a short period of time, the more people the algorithm will bring into the chat to come hang out with us and see what's going on. So please hit that like button and let me know how you're doing.
All right, how was the KFC? Very good, huh? Okay, and did you have enough? Okay, let's proceed.
Mr. Grosskroitz, I'm going to approach you for a second if I can. And I'm showing you what has been previously marked as Exhibit 69. You'd agree that the statement that I had previously showed you that you had given the police on the 26th, is that right?
Yes. So on this document, it's marked 2520. I don't know if that's reference to the time of the incident, but
Right.
This statement was given. It looks like 900. I'm sorry, 9:46 a.m. of
Okay.
the following day.
So just so we're clear, it says on 8/25/20 at 11:30 p.m. this happened, right?
Correct.
Okay. So the only thing I want to make sure that you're comfortable saying is there's markings at various points on this paper. Is that right?
Yes, there is.
Okay. And the statement is 2 pages. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would.
Okay. And can you tell me what those marks are on the left-hand side of that document?
What is being referred to? There are circles. It looks like 2 on the first page, 2 on the second page. And these are on the left-hand indent, and in those circles are my initials.
Okay. So you had at various points during that statement put your initials on it?
Correct. I wasn't able to, I'm right-hand dominant, so I wasn't able to write. So the officer that, I'm not sure which officer that was, but the officer was taking my verbal statement, transcribing it, and then throughout, I would initial either, so you can see here, there's the word approximately was crossed off. I signed that there's a correction there made.
Okay, so can I ask you this?
Yeah.
Where it says, I told multiple officers that
Here,
I
there's
had
the word,
dropped my firearm. Right next to that, you put your initials. Is that right?
yes, I did.
Okay. And to be fair, on the bottom of each one of these pages, it says, I have made the above statement without any threats or promises. It is my desire to state the true facts as to this incident. I have read the above statement and find it true and correct. Is that what it says?
That is what it says, yes.
Okay, and you signed that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So my last, where we left off, I just have a couple questions for you. I had asked you if you had any regrets about that evening, and that you had said that you did not, correct?
Correct.
And I had asked you if you know a person, Jacob Marshall, correct?
Yes.
And Jacob Marshall may not be today, but he was your roommate.
Yes.
And you had said that he had visited you in the hospital.
Yes.
And I'm going to show you what is marked as Exhibit 70. I'm not interested in the stuff on the right now. I'm just interested in the photograph. Okay? Is that a photograph of you and Mr. Marshall?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Does that appear to be taken after you had suffered the injury to your arm?
Yes.
Okay. And that's at a hospital. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you had said you didn't have any regrets. Did you tell Mr. Marshall that your only regret was not killing the kid and hesitating to pull the gun before emptying the entire mag into him?
No, I never said that.
You didn't tell that to your roommate?
Objection, answer.
Hold on.
You didn't tell that to Mr. Marshall?
No, I did not.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Judge, I would move 69 and 70.
Any objection?
You can do it after if you want. Your Honor, can we talk about those two exhibits afterwards? I do have objection to both of them.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Grosskroitz, I just have a few follow-up questions here. At one point in the video that was played for you by the defense, you referred to the defendant as a Boogaloo boy. What did you mean by that?
I don't recall if I was referring specifically to the defendant. I think a more accurate statement would be the group of armed individuals, predominantly white males with AR-15s, in, generally speaking, some sort of, we'll say, paramilitary attire. And what I mean by that is camel clothes, body armor, chest rigs, helmets, things of that nature.
Is it fair to say, Mr. Grosskroitz, that no matter what you tell us or remember, everything you did that night's on video or photographed, correct?
That is true.
I want to play a little bit of Exhibit 57. Can we go to the 31-minute mark, please? 31 minute. This was a portion of the exhibit that was played for you on cross-examination, and I just want to go back to that for a moment. Can we play from there, please?
Looks like the Boogaloo boys, the good old boys rolling up. Two right there. Two right there.
You fucking laughing? Fuck you!
Yo, we got our own medics. You're good. You can go home.
The voice that's heard there saying, "We got our own medics, you can go home." That's your voice, right?
Yes, it is.
Why did you say that?
It was my interpretation throughout the events of August 25th that these armed individuals, whether they were Boogaloo boys, Proud Boys, etc., all had we'll say, a homogeneous appearance. Again, meaning the rifles, the body armor, and what I had inferred throughout the events of that night, that these groups of people weren't received very friendly towards other demonstrators, and in specifically to reference the defendant, it was also my interpretation that the defendant lacked the necessary experience, potentially the necessary knowledge to adequately fulfill his self-proclaimed role as a medic.
Can we now go to the 57-minute and 36-second mark in this video, please?
Stay on your property. That's why you got problems already with people.
Here's the hothead here.
I know you are, but like, they got their own medics.
You were asked a question about the defendant's reaction
at that very moment in time when he was told by someone, don't go out in the street, stay on your property, and you were asked if the defendant reacted in any certain way. Do you know if he came and spoke with anyone about that comment at that moment in time?
No, I do not.
Okay. Now can we go to the 1 hour, 17 minute, and 10-second mark in this exhibit, please?
It sounded like gunshots. It sounds like multiple gunshots. People are scattering. Now this is southbound on Sheridan. This is, I was just at 60th. Looks like they even set up a recliner. Oh, 110%, bro.
Yeah, dude.
100.
Do you hear what the crowd is saying at that point?
I do.
And what were they saying?
Sounds like they're yelling medic repeatedly.
Is that what caused you to start running?
Yes, it is.
Okay, go ahead.
Shots.
Why are you shooting?
Hey, what are you doing? You shot somebody?
I want to get police.
Who shot? Who shot?
Go back 10 seconds and play that again, please.
Hey, what are you doing? You shot somebody?
I want to get police.
Who shot? Who shot?
Is it fair to say, Mr. Grosskroitz, that what was just played on the screen is the only words exchanged between you and the defendant after the defendant killed Joseph Rosenbaum?
Yes.
And you've already explained what you heard at that time. We've already heard the video. Was there ever a time in which the defendant said someone pulled a gun on him?
In hindsight, no.
In your statement the next morning, you told the police you'd heard the words, something to the effect of, he pulled a gun on me, from the defendant. Is that right?
Correct.
With the benefit of hindsight, we can see that never happened, correct?
Correct.
At the time you gave the statement to the police the following morning, how long had you been awake?
Couple hours, no more.
After surgery.
After surgery, yes.
And before surgery, you'd been awake all day Tuesday, right?
Yes.
And in the time period between you were shot by the defendant and the time you spoke to the police officers, did you even have possession of your phone?
No, I did not.
Had you watched this Facebook live stream?
No, I had not.
Can we continue that video now, please?
Stop him!
Hey, stop him!
Stop him! Stop him! Shot someone! Get his eyes! Medic!
Sounds like freedom ringing out there. Sir, is that you screaming and crying like a little bitch on the screen there? You are under oath.
Mr. Grosskroitz, we can still hear audio, but there's no video coming from your live stream. Do you know why that is at this particular moment in time?
I believe it's because I dropped my phone after being shot by the defendant.
To the best of your knowledge, did the audio that we just capture, or watch rather, did that capture everything that you said when you are, after you talked to the defendant and had that little exchange until you got shot?
Yes.
At any point in there, did you say anything about you're going to kill the defendant, you're going to shoot the defendant, make any threats to the defendant of any kind?
No.
Can we please pull up exhibit number 5? Let's put those down for a second. Let me just approach for a second. While we're getting ready for Exhibit 5, let me just ask, may I approach, Your Honor? Okay. Mr. Grosskroitz, the defense has shown you a photograph which has been marked as Exhibit number 65. I'm just going to hold that up for you. Does this show you with your hands raised before the defendant shoots you?
Yes.
Okay. And I think this has been on the TV screen, but I'll just show the jury. Are you pointing your gun at the defendant here?
No, I'm not.
Is this right before he does the re-racking of the gun?
Yes, it is.
And then exhibit number 66, this is the photograph that shows you moving towards the defendant after he re-racks the gun. Is that fair to say?
Yes, it is.
Now, you were asked if you are pointing your gun at the defendant in this picture and also in exhibit number 67. Do you remember being asked those questions?
I do.
At any point during that encounter, did you intentionally point your firearm at the defendant?
No, I did not.
Can we play exhibit 5, please? At this point in the video, there are people that are running in the same direction as the defendant. Are you even on screen yet?
I don't see myself on screen, no.
All right, let's keep going. The person that attempts to kick the defendant has flown over the defendant. Mr. Huber is approaching the defendant. Are you even on screen yet?
No, I'm not.
All right, let's continue. Now, at this moment in time, you are on the screen, and it appears that you're sort of crouching, like crouching down as if what? What were you thinking at that moment? Why were you doing that?
First, yes, that is me on the screen crouching, and it was reactionary instinct, I guess is a good way to put it, and the best way that I could describe that is, one, the noise from the shot. I mean, it's a very large caliber firearm, and think that in of itself probably startled me. But then my immediate next thought was I could be shot next.
If your intent was to shoot the defendant with your Glock pistol, would you have gotten that close to him?
If that was my intent, no.
If that was your intent, you wouldn't have done that.
Exactly. Right, correct.
Let's keep going for just a second, please. Would you mind
Crouching tiger, missing bicep.
standing up and demonstrating to the jury how your body is positioned in this still?
So if
You got a handheld?
A microphone?
We got your microphone.
Just arrest this guy. We don't need to hear anything else out of him.
We'll give you the microphone, and if you could just step in front of the jury there, I'd like you to demonstrate this for us, if you could. All right. Might have to hold it really close.
so in this still, if the defendant is right here in front of me on the ground, this is my pistol that I had in my hand. This is my cell phone. My body is bladed towards the defendant. I have a cell phone in my left hand, microphone or pistol in my right. My body is bladed with my left hand, left arm, towards the defendant's firearm, with then my pistol in a similar angle I'm about to show you.
When you were putting, after all this was said and done, was there any impact or anything like that on your left arm from that gunshot?
Yes, there was.
What was that?
It was determined to be a muzzle burn.
From its proximity to the defendant's gun?
So a little more context on that. When a bullet is fired, there are gases that are extracted.
Judge, I'm going to object.
That's fine. We'll move on. You can go ahead and have a seat.
Do a backflip. Can you show us what it was like to scream so hard for a medic?
At that moment in time, right before you got shot by the defendant, did you feel there was an imminent danger that the defendant was going to kill you?
Yes, absolutely.
When you were just demonstrating to us the way your right hand was holding the gun, however it was angled, my question for you is that the way you hold and point a gun when you're going to shoot it?
No.
I have no further questions.
So, Mr. Grosskroitz, you watched the video that Mr. Binger played when Mr. Rittenhouse was walking past you, and you had said something along the lines of, "No medics are needed here, we don't need you," right?
Yes.
Okay. And you were saying that, oh, here come some Boogaloo boys. You've never met Mr. Rittenhouse before, have you?
No, I have not.
You had no idea who he was, any affiliation with any group, nothing, right?
No.
You were just spouting off guessing. Yes?
I was making an inference. Yes.
With no information.
Yes.
And Mr. Binger asked you if you ever threatened verbally with words Mr. Rittenhouse. Do you remember him asking you that?
I do.
And your answer was he did not.
Yes.
You'd agree people don't have to use words to threaten other people. They can do it by their actions, correct?
Yes.
Like running after them down the street with a loaded firearm, right?
Yes.
Like approaching them, loading their foot and moving their gun forward while the person's on their butt sitting there, right? Those are nonverbal things that can be used to show aggression, correct?
Yes.
Now, you had been asked by Mr. Binger, and you had shown a demonstration of this blading maneuver, as you call it, and I'll take your word on that. Can you bring up 67? So, now, you can talk about what your mental intention was. You'd agree what everybody's looking at is you pointing a gun at a person's head, right?
As well as the defendant pointing his firearm at me.
Absolutely. But you are, by your own admission, pointing a pistol from less than 3 feet away at his head. Agreed?
No, I don't agree with that.
You don't agree that that gun is pointed in the direction of Mr. Rittenhouse's head? You don't agree with that?
In the direction, yes, but directly, no.
You didn't tell him what you were doing, right?
I don't have time to.
Well, as you're running, you didn't say anything, right? You're just chasing him down. You never say anything.
It would have been hard to communicate that over gunfire.
My question to you is, you never said a word to him other than approach him with your gun out from 3 feet away, right?
Yes.
I have nothing else.
When you asked the defendant if he'd shot anyone, he lied to you, didn't he?
Yes, you did.
And even though you've been asked questions about what he said at various times or things like that, did he make threats to anything like that, to people, anything like that? You construed his actions as threatening, didn't you?
Based off of witnessing the first 2 shots with Jump Kick Man, the third shot that killed Anthony Huber, yes.
Thank you.
I have one question. He didn't lie to you, right? When you had contact with him, he didn't lie to you, did he?
Yes, he did.
How did he lie to you?
After having asked him who was shot, and then him saying, I'm going to the police, which we know after the fact, and then saying, I didn't do anything.
So it's your testimony today that you heard. Now, to be fair, your first interview that you signed, you said that he told you, I'm working with the police, right?
I'm going to object. This is beyond the scope of redirect.
Right?
That is what I thought I heard in the moment, yes.
Okay, so you weren't telling the correct statement, correct?
Can you...
Yeah. You said that Mr. Rittenhouse lied to you.
Yes.
Your initial statement to the police was, he told me I'm working with the police. You know that's not true.
After the fact, yes.
Okay. So what is on tape is he said, I'm going to the police, right?
Yes.
You're not saying that's not true.
No, I'm not.
Nothing else.
You missed it, Counselor.
What a douchebag. Worthless witness. He just made himself look terrible. He's like, what are words? Can you explain the definition of lying, please? I just don't understand. It wasn't aimed directly at his head, but I mean, if I pulled the trigger, I was going to hit him in the head. But it wasn't direct. Stupid. So stupid. Hopefully they just put him right in jail.
See, we'll call Heather Williams to the stand.
Yeah, he's not getting that $10 million now. He blew that. That ain't gonna work out for him. Drunk Spider, you were unsubbed by YouTube. They kind of laid off me a little bit about that. Hopefully, they'll let you stay subbed for a while. I wish they would just get off my back about it. Stupid YouTube algorithm crap. What's up, CK Ultra? Alright, guys, figure out what the poll's going to be about.
Could you please state your name and spell it for the benefit of the court reporter?
First name is Heather, Heather. Last name is Williams, Williams.
And where are you employed?
The Wisconsin State Crime Laboratory, located in Milwaukee.
And what is your current position at the crime laboratory in Milwaukee?
I am a firearms and tool mark examiner.
And how long have you been employed with the Wisconsin State Crime Lab as a firearms tool mark examiner?
A little over 5.5 years.
And what does that mean to be a firearms or tool mark examiner?
As a firearms and tool mark examiner, I conduct examinations of firearms and firearms related evidence, such as fired cartridge cases and fired bullets.
And is there any specialized education or training that you have done pertaining to your job as a firearms or tool mark examiner?
Yes, I first hold a Bachelor's of Science degree in Law Enforcement and Justice Administration with a minor in Forensic Science that included a 525-hour internship at the DuPage County Forensic Science Center. I also completed the Wisconsin State Crime Laboratory Firearms and Tool Mark Examiner Training Program. It's an apprentice-type training program, much like an electrician or a plumber, where you get both hands-on and classroom-like instruction.
And what exactly is firearms identification?
Firearms identification is the comparison analysis of fired evidence, compares bullets to barrels and cartridge cases to firearms.
And what process is used when examining a firearm that is submitted to your section?
One of the first tasks that we perform when a firearm is submitted to the firearms section is called a function test. The purpose of the function test is to first make sure that the firearm is a functional firearm and that it is also safe to test fire. During that function test, I'll check the condition of the firearm along with all safeties that are associated with that firearm.
And then what do you do next with when examining that firearm?
Once I've determined that that firearm is safe to test fire, I will test fire the firearm. This is done to make sure that the firearm is working properly and the way that the manufacturer intended for it to work. And also instances in which we have fired evidence, those test fired bullets and cartridge cases that are produced are then compared to that fired evidence to see if they were or were not fired in the submitted firearm.
And did you become involved in a case in your professional capacity regarding Kyle Rittenhouse, Joseph Rosenbaum, and Anthony Huber?
Yes, I was.
And how did you become involved with that case?
I was assigned to work that laboratory case.
I'd like to show you what is previously marked and admitted as State's Exhibit 28. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do. I recognize that as the firearm that I analyzed for this specific case. How I recognize that is on the firearm in silver marker, I have indicated that laboratory case number associated with the case, the item designation of that item, my initials, and the date that that was examined.
So is it my understanding that you would have actually examined this exact firearm and fired it?
Correct, yes.
Okay. I think that's good. Thank you. So what do you use to test fire it with?
We're going to use ammunition that is part of our reference collection. When we choose the ammunition for our test fires, we try to choose it as close to the fired evidence that's submitted to that case.
What is a cartridge?
A cartridge is unfired ammunition that's going to consist of 4 components. You'll have the actual cartridge case, you'll have the primer, you'll have the propellant or gunpowder, and then you have the projectile or bullet.
So what is a cartridge case?
A cartridge case is a portion of a fired cartridge that is left over after it's been fired in a firearm. You may have commonly heard it referred to as brass.
And how do you determine if cartridge cases were fired in the same firearm?
You're going to look at markings that are transferred onto the fired cartridge cases during the firing process. Those are the markings that we look at to determine if they were or were not fired in the same firearm. And then instances when we have a firearm, we're able to determine if they were or were not fired in a specific firearm.
So what's the difference between a cartridge and a bullet?
A cartridge, like I said, is going to be the full unfired ammunition. So it's going to be those 4 components. A bullet is just one of those 4 components. So it's the projectile portion that you'll see on an unfired cartridge.
So what is a fired bullet?
A fired bullet is going to be the bullet that is expelled through the barrel of a firearm. It's going to have impressions that are going to be left on that from the rifling or that spiral pattern that's going to be within that bore of the barrel.
So how can you determine if bullets were fired in the same firearm?
You're going to look at those rifling impressions that are left on a fired bullet from the barrel that it's been fired through.
Is your crime lab accredited?
Yes, we are.
And who accredits your crime lab?
We are accredited through ANAB, ANAB. It stands for the American National Association Standards National Accreditation Board.
And are there any quality controls or procedures that are used, particularly in your discipline at your crime lab?
Yes, in the firearms section, we have a 3-step quality control procedure. The first step is called the verification process. This is when any type of identification, elimination, or inconclusive results of fired evidence is then looked at by a second qualified examiner in the section. Once that verification process has been completed, there is then a peer review process in which all notes and reports are looked at to make sure everything's clear, complete, and accurate. That last step is going to be administrative review. That is going to be when a supervisor will once again go through all reports and notes to make sure everything is clear, complete, and accurate before the report is submitted to the submitting agency.
I'll let you as marked as States Exhibit 72. Do you recognize that?
I do. This is the report that I issued for this specific case. I know that based upon the laboratory case number, as well as it has my name as well as my signature, and then it also has information on the second page with my initials showing that I did complete both of these pages of the report.
Is that a true and accurate copy of the report that you issued in this case?
Yes, it is.
I'd like to move Exhibit 72 into evidence.
I don't have an objection.
Let's see, is marked as States Exhibit 71. Can you please explain what this is?
This is one of the fired cartridge cases that I analyzed for this specific case. I can tell that based upon the laboratory sticker, the yellow sticker here. This has the laboratory case number associated with this case, the item designation, as well as my initials and date that I took this into my custody. I also have that information on the additional packaging for this specific item, And then we also have that information on the actual cartridge case itself.
So which was the bullet that was fired allegedly by the defendant? Where would that be in that packet?
This is just going to contain one of the fired cartridge cases. So this is a portion of a cartridge that was fired. So this is the portion that is ejected from the firearm.
So that the thing in the top of that threefold, that is what was presented to you as an already fired cartridge. That's not one that you fired.
Correct, yes. This is a piece of submitted evidence for this specific case.
So what kind of, is that a true and accurate copy of how you would have packaged up that particular cartridge casing and all the other elements in Exhibit 71?
Yes, I know that this is how I packaged this piece of evidence, because at each one of the heat sealed seals, it's going to have my initials as well as the date that I actually sealed this piece of evidence.
I'd like to move Exhibit 71 into evidence.
Objection. Steve?
So after you test fire the weapon, the gun that we saw, then what happens next in your analysis?
So what I will do then is I will compare those test fired cartridge cases to the fired evidence cartridge cases for this specific case. I do that by using what is called a comparison microscope. These are two microscopes that are then connected by an optical bridge. It allows myself as an examiner to look at two objects simultaneously side by side. That way I'm able to see the markings that are transferred from the firearm during that firing process on the cartridge cases to look to see if the submitted evidence was or was not fired in the submitted firearm.
So what did you do in this particular case?
In this particular case, there were 8 fired cartridge cases that were submitted. Each one of those 8 fired cartridge cases were then compared to the test fire cartridge cases that I produced, so that I could be able to determine if they were or were not fired in the submitted firearm.
So you were submitted 8 of the, if you hold up Exhibit 71 briefly, you were given 8 of those cartridges on top?
Yes, it's 8 fired cartridge cases, just like this one here, was submitted for this specific case and analyzed.
And did you find that all 8 of those cartridges were fired through the weapon that Detective Antaramian showed you?
Yes, I was able to determine that the 8 fired cartridge cases submitted in this case was fired in the submitted firearm.
And that was by comparing each one to the test fired projectiles that you fired?
Correct, yes.
I have nothing further, thank you.
Cross-examine.
Well, thank you.
You may step down, man.
Stand call Officer Jason Krieger to the stand.
Kind of surprised to see her put her mask on. The mask thing is a voluntary thing in the courtroom. They talked about it when they were doing jury selection. You think she told everybody her OnlyFans before she walked out, or was it implied? You think everyone got like a handout? Oh, looks like we got another officer. Wonder how many officers they'll have as witnesses.
I do.
You guys keep asking me for a poll. As soon as you come up with what the poll is going to be about, I'll set it up.
Sir, can you please state and spell your first and last name for the record?
Jason Krieger. It's JasonKrueger.
And how are you employed?
With the City of Kenosha Police Department.
How long have you been on the City of Kenosha Police Department?
Approximately 2 years and 11 months.
And were you working on August 25th, 2020?
I was.
And were you working with an officer, Pep Moretti, on that date?
Yes.
Had you been working in the previous days during the civil unrest that was occurring in Kenosha?
Yes.
And on August 25th, what was your assignment, your general assignment with your partner, Officer Moretti?
So on that date and time, we were assigned to second shift patrol. We were patrolling the downtown area as well as handling calls that popped up throughout the city, anything in progress.
So is it fair to say you were focused downtown, but if there was a reason to go to another part of the city for a domestic violence or a burglary, you would still respond to that call?
Yes.
Is that different than how let's say the night before was in your duties?
I believe that throughout most of the time that was kind of the same. We were heading to in-progress calls, focusing on the downtown area to handle any incidents that arise.
Now, on the night of August 25th, at any point were you ever asked to respond to a potential shooting?
I do recall going to a shooting. We were just right in the area. I'm not 100% sure if we were dispatched to that call or not.
So, but at some point you and Officer Moretti went in the direction of some shots?
Yes.
And do you recall how you went about going to that location?
Yes, so we were in the area of 60th Street and between the 12 and 1300 block on a other call. I believe it was a fire. I heard the gunshots coming to southeast of us. I looked at Officer Moretti, and we decided at that point we were going to head to that since it seemed in progress.
Now, in your training, what are you trained to do if there is, let's say, a potential active shooter situation?
Our number one focus is to stop the killing or to make the scene secure, eliminate any active threats.
So with that in mind, what, if anything, did you do?
When we approached the scene, we had approached slowly just to try to attempt to gain any visual information that we could see. We had just been with a few other squads, other armored vehicles in the area, so we were assuming they were behind us. And we approached the scene very slowly to determine if we could at least get a visual on the any threats that we could see. We were hearing gunshots, we just couldn't see where they were coming from at that point.
Did anyone approach your vehicle?
Yes.
Who approached your vehicle?
There was a younger male. He was dressed in a t-shirt and I believe cargo shorts, and he was carrying an AR-15 style assault rifle, and he had his hands raised, and I believe he was carrying a medic bag as well.
Did you hear anything that the crowd was shouting in relation to this individual?
I did not hear any specific phrases. There was just a lot of noise, a lot of background noise, and in my mind I was more focused on hearing the gunshots and trying to figure out where they were coming from. I didn't necessarily hear any specific words the crowd was shouting toward me.
Do you, at one point, I'm going to represent you, there's a video that shows you getting out of the squad car and running to the trunk. Do you have any idea why you did that?
A lot of my equipment I use on duty is stored in the trunk. Gas masks, vests, things like that. If I would have retrieved something from the trunk, it would have been to keep me safe on the scene if there was an active shooter. I do not recall the exact item.
By vest, do you mean like a bulletproof vest?
Yes.
Were you already wearing a bulletproof vest?
I do not recall what vest I was wearing, but I had my steel plate carrier with me. The vest I'm currently wearing right now is not able to prevent a rifle round going through, but the steel plate carrier that I had at that time would have been able to stop anything up to a round coming from a rifle.
So the vest you're wearing now, is that sort of the standard everyday vest that you would wear?
Yes.
And a bullet fired from an AR-15 like the one the defendant had, your vest would not stop it at all?
It's not rated for it. I've never attempted to do it, but I do not believe it would.
And how about your squad car? Is your squad car armored in any way that would prevent rifle rounds from penetrating it?
To my knowledge, no.
So, what do you do as this person is approaching you on the street?
As I watched him approach, I was giving him verbal commands to keep away from my squad. I did not want anybody coming up directly to my squad that could be a potential threat. So we were giving him verbal commands just to stay back. I had also grabbed my pepper spray out of my vest and was going to use it if the individual continued to approach the car.
Why did you see him as a threat?
I never met him before. He had a rifle. Just given the situation at hand, there was a lot of circumstances where I just did not want some individual coming up to my squad car in that scene with there's gunshots still going off that I didn't necessarily know.
You said his hands were up, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Did you feel like he was surrendering to you?
No.
Why not?
Throughout the past few days, we've come across a lot of individuals who are armed, and the first thing they do is put their hands up to signal that they don't mean any threat to us. It doesn't mean that they were surrendering, it just means that they just wanted us to see their hands. Hands are the most, they typically indicate if a threat is going to be present. So if we can see their hands, we generally know there's no threat there.
So you indicated that you grabbed your OC spray or pepper spray. What happened next?
The individual approaching our car was not responding to my verbal commands. So I checked the OC can, made sure it was able to discharge the spray, and I pointed it at the individual, and I discharged a stream of OC spray towards his direction when he would not listen to my commands.
At that point, how close was he to and you were in the passenger side?
Yes.
At that point, how close was he to your passenger side door?
I believe he was within about 5 feet.
Do you know if the spray hit him or not?
I do not recall.
Did the spray have the desired effect of him getting away from the vehicle?
Yes, he ended up walking away from me.
So once he left the area of your vehicle, what happened next?
I began to see other squad cars and armored vehicles coming to the area. I believe I took up a position on the east side of the road towards the parking lot and just kind of held it there to attempt to gain eyes as more officers came on scene. Throughout that time, I just tried securing the scene as best as possible, trying to gather as much information as possible about where the shots were coming from, who was firing them, and who the suspect was.
What, if anything, happened next?
We were approached by one of the mutual aid tactical teams who informed us that they had an individual with a gunshot wound to the arm. I believe that individual was Mr. Grosskroitz, and they did not know how to access the hospital. Since I was familiar with the area, Officer Moretti and I got into our squad car, and we escorted that tactical vehicle to the east side of the Freighter South Hospital and got Mr. Grosskroitz into the ER.
Now, the tactical vehicle you mentioned, is that what some people commonly refer to as like a Bearcat or an MRAP or something like that?
Yes.
So then you accompanied that to the hospital, and it contained Mr. Grosskroitz, who had been injured?
Yes.
Now, at the hospital, what happened? What did you observe?
So we got him into the hospital. I believe he went back to the ER. I stayed in the lobby. I was approached by another individual, Richard McGinnis, who kind of talked to me about that. He gave me information that he believed that he had the suspect on video just prior to the shooting. So I talked to him briefly, obtained the cell phone, and obtained the individual's ID card.
And then did you have him get interviewed by someone at in your department?
Yes, I passed all that information along to the Detective Bureau. I believe it was Sergeant DeWitt.
Now, at the hospital, when you were there with Officer Moretti, did you have any interaction with Joseph Rosenbaum, who at that point had deceased?
I believe that I helped Officer Moretti process and collect the evidence from one of the deceased. I do not recall which victim it was.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Good afternoon, officer.
Good afternoon.
So I don't have a whole lot of questions for you, but so if I could, and we've heard Officer Moretti testify. Okay, so do you hear what you believe to be rifle rounds around 11:50 or so on the 25th?
I heard gunshot rounds. I could not tell if they were handgun or rifle rounds.
Okay, so the type of firearm that had been discharged at that point, it was difficult for you to make out.
Yes.
But you knew that there'd been a discharge of firearms. You heard that much.
Yes.
So, do you recall seeing a person that you now know to be Mr. Rittenhouse walking toward your squad car?
Yes.
Okay, and to be fair, he has his hands like this, right?
Yes.
Okay, and I understand that you said that, tell me if I'm right, throughout that evening, people maybe who had firearms, when they saw you, they put their hands up, so you knew that they weren't a threat to you.
Yes.
This is also, to be fair, a way that someone could surrender.
Yes, it could.
Okay. And again, don't take this as being critical. I'm not trying to be that way. But as he's walking toward you, he doesn't have at that point his hands on his gun, but he's just walking toward your vehicle, right?
Yes.
And I understand your concern, but as he's getting closer to you, after knowing that a shot or shots had just been fired, I know there's a lot going on, but were you interested in finding out if he had any information?
I was.
Okay. And when he starts coming to the side, he's coming to your side, right?
Yes.
Do you hear him like say anything to you?
The only thing I can remember him saying was something about a shooting. That there was no other verbal indication from him coming directly saying it was me. It was just something about a shooting.
Okay. And you had just heard shots fired.
Yes.
This person's walking to you with his hands up and says something about a shooting, right?
I mean, his exact words were not something about a shooting,
No.
but
Fair enough. He says something. Included in that something is the word shooting.
yes.
And so I understand that we've seen the video, you pull out your OC spray, and after giving him a command, you spray him with the spray, right?
Yes.
It sounded like he called it wussy spray.
Mr. McGinnis, you had mentioned that you see Mr. McGinnis at the hospital. He shows you the video?
Yes.
Do you say to yourself, that's the guy that's walking with his hands up that I just saw?
I did recognize the individual from the video, and into my mind, I believed he looked familiar.
Okay, and again, so do you tell anybody at that point, like, look, I'm putting these together. The guy that has his hands up, that's the guy we're probably looking for.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I do have two other questions. As he's walking up to you, Do you ever ask him, and I understand it's a chaotic situation, do you ever ask him for identification?
No.
Do you ever ask him or do anything with the fact that he's possessing an AR-15?
No.
Now I have no other questions. Thank you, sir.
Were there other people, not necessarily in front of your vehicle, but around the area, in addition to Mr. Rittenhouse?
I do not recall.
Were other people trying to give you information regarding a shooting or a potential shooter or anything like that?
There was a lot of voices shouting. Nobody directly came up to my squad car window like Mr. Rittenhouse did, but there was people after he had left the side of my squad car as I got out of the squad who did give me information about potential suspects as well.
Now, when you and Officer Murray are trying to get down to the scene of the active shooter, what is your primary goal?
Stop the killing, stop any threat.
Is that consistent with getting identification and speaking to an individual approaching your vehicle?
No.
Thank you.
Right. Across, I guess. You may step down.
The state calls Kristen Harris to the stand.
We're going to switch to live feed. I found another live feed where it's going to show more angles. Like you may have noticed for the last witness or two, it was just showing the witness. It wasn't showing the prosecutor or anything. That's because this live feed is just pretty much stagnant. So I'm going to switch it out really quick.
Good afternoon.
A-N, last name Harris, Harris.
How are you currently employed?
Basically, I've been furloughed, but I've been pursuing my passions, obviously doing the Rundown Live, which is a reporter, and I do talk radio.
Can you tell us what the Rundown Live is?
It's an independent news and media. We try to bring all viewpoints, have civil conversations, sometimes about difficult content, as well as we cover protests of all varieties, of all political viewpoints as well.
Is there a large group of people that produce the Rundown Live, or are you kind of the main person?
There's several people that are involved there. It's a group of citizen journalists. We quite often post stuff from other independent news sites. We try to report news before the mainstream media does, so we can give a very raw version.
What is your educational background?
I finished high school, but education really didn't become important to me till my later years. So, most of my research I've done through my own reading of books and information.
Do you have any formal journalistic training?
That I do not.
And do you operate out of the Milwaukee area?
That is correct.
Okay. How long have you been involved with the Rundown Live?
I've been doing reporting for about 12 years.
When you say reporting, is that all the Rundown Live or other stuff?
I also contributed to one of the top police accountability websites as a writer, known as Cop Block, which has been around for a long time.
What is that called?
Cop Block.
Cop Block?
Yes.
Okay.
.org was the website.
And when you say you contribute to them, does that mean you're like a reporter for them?
I used to write for them, though it's a defunct organization that was banned amongst a lot of other websites.
Okay.
Yeah.
When did you first get involved in the Rundown Live?
It's probably around 2011.
Did you form it, or did someone else?
Someone else formed it.
And then you joined it?
Yes, that is correct. And that person is no longer involved.
Do you have any sort of title with that organization?
I believe I'm the editor.
And you said you've covered a lot of protests. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. Since about 2013, I probably covered over 100, 150 protests. I don't know the exact number.
What types of protests would they be?
Everything from something basic as Second Amendment rights and healthcare workers, against mandates, to BLM, Minneapolis, the burning down of the 3rd Precinct, DC, obviously January 6th, as well as Kenosha and probably countless BLM protests.
There were some things there that I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. You said the burning of the 3rd
Burning down
district.
of the 3rd Precinct of Minneapolis, yes.
Okay.
That was the date. I don't know the date. That's how I recognize it.
That was one of the things that happened after George Floyd was killed?
That is correct.
And you, sorry, Karen, do we need to slow down?
Sure.
Whatever she says, so we got to make sure. You also mentioned January 6th. Is that with regard to what happened at the United States Capitol on January 6th of this year?
That is correct.
Were you there for that?
I was.
Okay. And were you covering that for the Rundown Live?
That is correct.
You mentioned Kenosha. Were you here in Kenosha for the events that followed the shooting of Jacob Blake?
I was on scene within an hour or two of the shooting of Jacob Blake.
Were you then, well, help the jury to understand, when you talk about the Rundown Live, we're familiar with a lot of different types of media, newspapers, magazines, the internet, things like that. Can you help us understand exactly what you mean when you say you cover these things?
Yeah, I'm a citizen journalist, so I generally go to these events and I stream a lot of the times. I interview people to try to get natural conversations and have civil conversations so people can understand, in my viewpoint, what people really are saying before there might be some propaganda added. So essentially, it's the most raw form of journalism.
So when you came down within an hour or thereabouts after Jacob Blake, were you interviewing and speaking to people?
Yes.
Do you record that in any way?
Yes, I do. Well, I stream it. It's recorded on the cloud.
Okay. So is it fair to say that when you are covering any sort of event for the Rundown Live, you have a camera that is taking video of the things you see?
That is correct. I usually use my cell phone, which is a high-end device.
And then that video is live streamed to the internet on whatever site you use so that people can watch it pretty much live. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say.
Okay. So, for example, on the night Jacob Blake was shot on that Sunday night, August 23rd, you were here using your equipment to live stream the things that you were seeing.
That is correct.
Did you continue to do that on Monday night?
Yes.
And again on Tuesday night?
Yes.
So I want to skip right to the night of Tuesday, August 25th, 2020. Were you here in Kenosha that night?
I was.
Were you live streaming for the Rundown Live?
As well as collecting B-roll, correct.
I'm sorry?
B-roll is footage that you take because you can't stream live because your internet connection is, so it's actually recorded straight to the device.
Okay. Do you recall approximately what time you would have arrived in Kenosha that particular day or night?
Yeah, around 8 o'clock, 8:15.
Where did you go once you came to town?
I headed down to the courthouse because that's where things were happening.
And then did you start your live streaming at that point?
I attempted to, but courthouse internet isn't the greatest. So.
We've all learned that lesson. So what did you do then?
I recorded video straight to my cellular device because this way at least I had documentation I could publish later.
Did there come a time in which your internet connection improved?
Yes.
How did you manage to make that happen?
It started to improve when I first started to head towards 59th and Sheridan.
Okay. Do you know what changed that made that better?
Yes. I ran into an interaction between Ryan Balch, I believe, and Gage Grosskroitz and other people by the courthouse, and I asked if there was more armed individuals because the night before there was a video that went viral of people protecting property, and I felt it would make a different story than getting the same story I had the last 2 days.
And I do want to talk about what you just mentioned, but I think I didn't ask my question very well. You talked about being here and having poor internet by the courthouse, but then it got better when you went down to a different location.
That is correct, so I could stream live.
What was it that made the internet better or stronger down there than here? Do you know?
I don't know if it was just I had poor cell phone service or it was just better location. That's the only thing I can think of is that location on my way there, it improved. I attempted to go live again and I was able to.
So is it fair to say that once you were able to go live, you continued to broadcast live throughout most of the rest of the evening?
That is correct, till my battery ran out.
Okay. And did there come a time in which you went to that 59th Street car source location?
Yes.
Okay. And you've been here in the courtroom throughout parts of this trial, is that fair to say?
That is correct.
And you have seen other witnesses testify, such as Mr. Balch and Mr. Lukowski?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And when you were out live streaming that night, you went to that car source location and interacted with those individuals on some level. Is that fair to say?
That is fair.
Okay. I want to focus in on a period of time in that evening when there was a dumpster that was pulled out in the road out in front of the 59th Street car source. Do you I'm going to ask two separate questions. First of all, do you independently remember that happening? Did you also get some video of that?
I did. It was streamed live.
Okay. And then from there, did you continue to remain physically at the 59th Street car source location for several minutes after that?
I did.
And were you in close proximity to either Ryan Balch or the defendant, or both of them, during those several minutes afterwards?
Probably within 20 feet.
Okay. Could we begin, I'm going to, our TVs are on, if not I'll turn them on. Could we watch a little bit of your live stream, which has been marked as exhibit number 18, and we're going to go to the 1 hour, 22 minute, and 14 second mark.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of disappointed I wasn't subpoenaed to court. I'd like my 5 minutes of fame. Talk about the hooligans and all the truth that we're out here spreading while we're talking shit about these idiots on the screen. Missed my 5 minutes of fame, damn it.
Let me just ask Mr. Harris, do you recognize what is up on that screen?
I do.
Can you tell us what that is?
It looks like a dumpster that is in the middle of the street.
And is this a portion of your rundown live stream from the night of August 25th, 2020?
It is.
And would you agree with me that we are looking, well, did you personally recorded this, correct?
Correct.
And this is taken from the 59th Street car source lot looking into Sheridan Road facing east. Would you agree with that?
At this frame, yes.
Okay. Can we please play the video?
And militia are up there.
We need water. Yeah, we got a fire.
Where? Oh, dumpster fire?
Yeah, just a dumpster fire. Hey, it's just like the year, man.
Yeah, right? If 2020 was a blunt, it would be just a fucking stem.
It would just be stem and seed, man.
I could use a doobie right now.
Continue the video for just 1 second, please.
Hey, cover me.
Mr. Harris, there are two people in this video that I'm going to point out to you. There is a gentleman here that is a little bit of a taller gentleman with a beard and some sort of cap on. And there's a woman next to him that appears to have sort of reddish hair. Do you see those two people?
I do.
I'm going to ask two questions. First of all, that night, did you have any idea who those people were?
I did not.
As you sit here today, do you know who those people are?
I believe one of them was the person who shot the fire behind, or the gunshot behind Rosenbaum, and I don't know who the other one is because their back is turned to me.
Okay. No dispute, that's Joshua and Kelly Zeminski? Okay. So I'll represent to you, sir, that the taller gentleman is Joshua Zeminski, and the woman next to him is Kelly Zeminski. Okay. Please continue.
All right, let's.
Morning. How's it going? You guys want to fuck around and find out? Reel in. Reel in. Don't cause problems when there's none here. Yeah, that's true. Just stay on your property. Otherwise you're gonna there's way too many of them.
There is an individual who is standing on the edge of that frame on the right-hand side there. Do you recognize that person as Gage Grosskroitz?
I do.
Okay. Please continue.
I agree with her. I have to agree with her. Yeah, they shouldn't be on the street. They're just protecting their property. One of the guys is an asshole.
I know. I thought they were yelling at them. I was like, why?
Oh, no,
These guys were.
Well, we did because they lit it on fire.
One of the guys losing his patience. He should go inside.
Yeah, that's what we're about to send him.
Yeah, if you guys could switch him out. Just somebody's a loose cannon. He's got a lot of rage. He says the wrong thing. This whole crowd burns you guys alive.
Yeah.
Sounds like a safe environment.
10 seconds, please.
Yeah, if you guys could switch him out. Just somebody's a loose cannon. He's got a lot of...
Plus, there we go. Again, I want the jury to see that in the middle of the screen there is a taller gentleman with his hands in his pockets. That is Joshua Zeminski. And on the TV screen to the left of him with jeans on, that is Kelly Zeminski. All right, please go ahead.
Rage. He says the wrong thing. This whole crowd burns you guys alive. Keep it there. He's just trying to protect his property. He doesn't want anything. He has no problem with you guys. He just doesn't want anyone to burn down his shit. I can't blame him. I understand. Hey, your job isn't to be in the street. You guys stay on your property. That's why you got problems already with people. No one bothering your property. Don't look for trouble where there ain't none. A medic? I know you are, but like they got their own medics. You know, if somebody's close by, take care of them. I know you're just trying to make peace. I get.
As this video is playing, we hear your voice speaking to someone in the background. Do you hear that?
Yeah.
Who are you speaking to?
I believe that was an interaction with Kyle Rittenhouse.
Do you recall anything about what he was saying to you at that point?
That he was a medic, and that was it. Pretty much that I got from that.
You said at one point they have their own medics. Did you hear that?
Yes.
What did you mean by that?
I cover a lot of protests, so I become familiar with a lot of the BLM organizations over the summer, especially during the George Floyd marches. So I felt a little bit more comfortable, per se, because I have had more interactions. That's all basically I was.
Sure, but you indicated they have their own medics. What does that mean?
Basically, the medics are, from my understanding, are individuals who volunteer to help out and take care of individuals that were injured. And I've seen them on multiple occasions, 8 individuals that were injured in protests.
Continue.
Yeah, but they don't look at it that way. They look at you guys as it's a different. It's as much as you guys were afraid of them before they marched down here. I know, but like what a conversation you're having.
So you made a comment there about how they don't look at you that way or something along those lines. What did you mean by that?
A lot of the protesters identified the armed citizens as counter-protesters. They didn't identify them as just protecting their property.
Would it be fair to say that it was your impression that...
That was my impression, correct?
Sure. Would it be fair to say that it was your impression that the people in the crowd viewed the people around Mr. Rittenhouse as a threat?
I wouldn't say that. I would say that there may have been some individuals that had that, but not in the majority. I can't speak for everyone. I don't know what they were thinking.
Okay.
You know.
Let's continue, please.
Thanks, guys.
Back away from the business. Back away from the business.
That's my police.
Leave the business.
Thanks for
It appears that Mr. Balch and Mr. Lukowski are running towards you yelling gas, gas, gas. Would you agree with me on that?
That is correct.
What was going on?
The Bearcats were rolling, and they began to tear gas and trying to push the crowd past, I believe that's towards 60th, South 60th.
Okay. Have you recently watched this portion of your video?
I have.
And would you agree with me that for a few minutes after this, you are in close proximity with either Ryan Balch, Kyle Rittenhouse, or both of them at the same time?
I don't know for exactly how long, but yes.
Okay. I'm going to have the video played further, but I'm going to have the sound turned off.
Okay.
And then I'll let my colleague know when to stop the video, okay? Now, while we're playing the video, Mr. Harris, are you able to tell the jury where this scene is?
Yes, it's the back corner of the car lot of Car Source. There is people, or I don't know who it was, but they're throwing rocks up from behind the building.
And where you're at right now in this video are either Mr. Balch or Mr. Rittenhouse near you?
They were probably within 15 feet.
Are there any of the protesters or people on the street or anything like that anywhere near you at this point?
Negative.
Why is that?
They all moved towards what I call the gas station, 60th and Sheridan. Yeah.
Is that in part because the police had just gassed the entire street?
That would probably be the most likely reason.
And that dispersed the crowd?
Correct.
Thank you so much, Kelly and Lisa, for your donations and your support. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much, Ted, for joining the membership program, and welcome to the family. You're officially a hooligan.
That gas towards you and the other folks that were around the corner there. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say.
Did you have a gas mask on?
I did not.
Did any of them, do you know?
Not that I saw.
Let's pause right here. Mr. Harris, do you see those armored vehicles in the street?
Sure do.
Now, if I'm reading the screen here correctly, your video file here has about 24 minutes left to play. Would that be accurate?
That would be accurate.
And have you watched this video recently?
Yes.
Does this video end around the time that Mr. Rosenbaum, or the defendant, shoots the people?
Yes, within a few minutes after that. Battery ran out.
Okay. So would it be fair to say that at this moment in the video, the shootings are going to be in roughly 20 minutes or thereabouts after this?
Roughly, yes.
I see that the Bearcats and whatnot are in the road at this point in front of the 59th Street Car Source. Do you know where they traveled after this?
They traveled more forward towards 60th Street, I believe, and then they stopped there.
Did they establish a line keeping the protesters south of 60th at that point?
With the MRAPs, or Bearcats, yes.
Okay. So is it fair to say, Mr. Harris, that for the remainder of your video, as far as you know, no protesters came back to 59th Street Car Source after this?
Not that I witnessed.
Two questions. First of all, do you independently remember at any point in the sequence of events that we've just seen, starting with that dumpster fire and all the way forward here, do you remember ever seeing Joseph Rosenbaum?
I do not.
After rewatching your video, is Mr. Rosenbaum in this video at any point during the series that we've just watched?
No, not that I can see.
I have nothing further.
For everyone asking about why the video had no audio, is because in that video there's multiple references to them being militia and things like that. Like kind of like categorizing Kyle in the situation of the riot, and so that's why it was muted. It was a big ordeal on the first day.
Mr. Harris, on the video, you describe people as militia, right?
Correct.
You point up at the roof and say, "There's militia members up there," right?
That is correct.
That's your opinion. You didn't talk to any of them about. I'll ask it to you this way: you had no information that Mr. Rittenhouse was in any type of militia, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, you at some point say to him, he's moving the dumpster, and you say, well, I strike that. At first you say, this whole crowd could burn you guys alive if you say the wrong thing. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And why'd you say that?
I wanted to de-escalate the situation.
Was it getting escalated?
Yes.
And that was in part because the dumpster was put out? The fire in the dumpster was put out?
That is correct. It angered the protesters at that time.
Now, did you see things that were going on that night that would be outside the realm of protesting, but more along the lines of rioting?
I would agree with that term, yes.
So you saw, you had mentioned it, and we'll talk about it, rocks were being thrown at people, right?
I didn't witness that.
Well, you saw people throwing rocks on the roof.
Oh, okay, well, fair enough.
There's
I
people
didn't
on the roof.
I was told that by people on the roof that they were throwing rocks.
You didn't see it?
I did not see that, no.
Were you aware that there were homemade gas bombs being thrown?
One of the people on the roof did say that there was a homemade gas bomb, basically, I don't want to, ammonium and bleach. I don't know how they knew that, but that's what they claimed.
And you had said to Mr. Rittenhouse, I know you're just trying to make peace, right?
Correct.
Okay, so to be fair, he wasn't doing anything aggressively, correct?
I agree with that.
He wasn't verbally threatening anyone.
No, he was offering help.
He wasn't using his firearm in a way to scare or intimidate people by pointing it at them. Agreed?
Agreed.
When you say, I think you said on the video at one point, there are people throwing rocks at people on the.
Correct.
Do you see Mr. Rittenhouse go after those people in the direction of where they're throwing the rocks and chase them?
No.
So people on the roof are arguably in direct danger because, did you ever see the rocks?
I did see the rubble and people throwing rocks at the Bearcats, but
Right. So
it was concrete.
Sorry, that's right. So they weren't really throwing what you and I might see like rocks on a beach. We're talking about clumps of concrete that they're smashing, picking up, and then throwing at people, right?
Correct.
And knowing that, you didn't see Mr. Rittenhouse go after those people who were actually causing danger to others, right?
No, I did not.
Did you have contact with the owners of that the car source that night or the next day?
Not those 2 days, but I did see him pull up, I think, later on in that week.
The two brother, if you know.
I don't know. All I know is that whoever the owners were, they pulled up, and I briefly walked by and said something to him. I don't recall.
Mr. Harris, I appreciate your time. Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Any redirect?
Mr. Harris, the people that you saw at 59th Street Car Source that you characterized as the militia, was the defendant dressed the same as them?
No, he was not.
He had on sort of an army green colored shirt, correct?
Lime green, army green shirt.
He had a weapon slung around him like they did, correct?
Correct.
It was the same type of weapon as the rest of those folks, correct?
I'm not really good with guns, but it seemed to be so.
He was in the same group with these guys that you felt were militia members, correct?
That is correct.
And he was acting the same as they were, wasn't he?
For the most part, yes.
You were asked about who escalated things. Can we get Exhibit 18 at the 1 hour and 22 minute and 30 second mark, please? Let's play from there with sound, please.
If 2020 is a blunt, it would be just a fucking stem.
It would just be stem and seed, man.
I could use a doobie right now.
Hey, cover me, I got the All right, let's.
I like how they just keep playing the fact that the live streamer was talking about needing a doobie. That cracks me up.
You guys want to fuck around and find out?
Hey.
You guys want to fuck around and find out, right? Immediately after that, you basically scold that guy, don't you?
I believe, well, whatever you want to call it, I tried to de-escalate the situation.
Because he was escalating it,
That is
wasn't
correct.
he? By what he was saying.
Yes.
You guys want to fuck around and find out. Did you interpret that as a threat towards the other people?
I didn't really think about it, but I could see how it could be interpreted that way.
And that guy's wearing an AR-15, isn't he?
Probably, yes.
In fact, that same guy went around back, and when those people were behind the place throwing rocks, he said to you he was going to take his gun and start shooting rounds through the fence at them, didn't he?
I don't recall or remember that.
Can we go forward on the video to about... Let's go to about
Nothing to do with Mr. Rittenhouse. Nothing.
What is the relevance of this?
There were questions about what the response was to people throwing rocks
The response of whom?
of the group.
The group's not on trial. Mr. Rittenhouse is on trial.
That's fine. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
The person that was yelling on that tape, that's not Mr. Rittenhouse, right?
That is correct.
Nothing else.
What, you may step down, sir. What about a break? Let's take a break. Please don't talk about the case. Read, watch, or listen to any of the count of the trial. See you in a little bit. Maybe 3:15? Maybe. Maybe not.
Good Lord. Do they have any witnesses that have value? They're just going to bring in random people, like they got any pizza boys or anything? Hear their opinion of how the riots went? Nobody's worse than Bicep Guy, though. He's probably one of the worst ones. He was painting himself in a corner the whole time he was up there. Yeah, son. All these witnesses are, they have value to the defense, that's for sure. Thanks for being here, Jeff.
There was an issue. Let me see you gentlemen for a sec, would you?
Kevin, they're gonna call the sewer rats to testify. They might. I'll be like, did you see Kyle carrying around a freedom tool, using his 2A tool to provide justice to those in need? All right, Tara, we might use that for the next poll. The dumpster should testify. Well, I wasn't participating in the riot. I was just there on fire, witnessing what was happening. Thank you so much, Annie. Are you okay? I really appreciate the donation, the support. Thank you so much for being here. Does anybody know why they brought the whatever the woman's name or title was, something, pew pew inspector or something along those lines? What was the point of her being up there? She was like describing the mechanics of a bullet and did some show and tell of the bullet that she documented. Like, she did not provide anything other than that, and then no one really questioned her hardly at all. What was the point of her being up there? You think she paid for her OnlyFans placement, or they just did that for what do they call it? Comic relief? They're going to call Corinne up there and ask her about me. God only knows what she'll say. All good things, I hope. Clout. Yeah, that's probably what it was. They just put her up on the stand for clout. They just want to show that they're not biased. Let's see, today's Monday, so they got 4 more days of this, or at least that's what they estimated. This will be coming to an end this week. I don't know if they'll come up with a verdict this week. Depends how many days this goes, I guess. Oh, they had her up there to prove that Kyle did fire 8 rounds. I mean, I guess that serves a purpose. I know everybody hated the sound of her voice. All 5 chats were saying the same thing. They were not impressed with her voice. Yeah, I appreciate you guys all sharing this out. You guys are super awesome. For anyone that is watching this brand new, please subscribe and follow. We try to go live every single day, covering anything and everything we find. Wayne, they're gonna call up Jen Balsacki. You know she's seen the whole thing. She was in there protesting hardcore. She's undercover Antifa when she can get her human face on. What's up, Kath? I'm doing pretty good. I hope you are too. They won't be on break that long. Well, another 10 minutes or so. They're going to put Kyle on the stand. He's going to lean over to the mic. He's going to be like, Trump did it. And they're going to be like, oh, case dismissed. That sounds about right. And they're going to let it all go. They're going to let him walk free. It's going to be just like that. Right at the end. Just a big blowout on the last day. Prosecutor's going to show up and rip his plug out and shit all over the seat and be like, I knew it. I knew it. I knew it was Trump's fault. I can't believe how the world is. It's like an ongoing joke that's not funny. Trump made me do it. Why not? People have said that about God and the devil. Might as well bring Trump in there. Just, Trump made me do it. He told me I had rights and stuff. And if I had a terrible ass kicking coming my way that could result in death, that I had the right to defend myself. Trump made me do it. Damn it. Annie, are you okay? I do not know if Kyle's gonna testify or not. I don't know why it would benefit him. With everything going on, all the video footage and stuff, I don't see how it would benefit him. Good to hear, Kath. Yeah, I don't take any medicine. I have a really bad stomach, so taking medicine just makes me sick. So I don't ever take medicine. Snowflake's Nightmare. We got probably just less than 10 minutes left of this break. And then, probably under 2 hours left of the trial for the day. We're going to be cracking a beer here in a second. I know that. Trump TV. I think that Kyle's gonna, at very least, get minor in possession of a firearm. I don't think he's gonna get away from that. I don't know if he's gonna get any more than that, but I don't think he's gonna get any less than that, in my opinion. Glimmer of Freak. Tell us a funny story. I don't have like a real funny story offhand, but I did run to the post office on my lunch break and had to stand in line, which was unusual because where I live is a very small town. Usually I don't have to stand in line, but there's got to be 20 something paper signs that say mask is required as I stand in this line barefaced. Everyone around me had a mask on but me, and they're all looking at me and like debating whether or not to take their masks off. And I thought that was humorous. And then when I walked in to talk to the lady about my packages that she was holding on to, that's what she said, she actually took her mask off. I don't know if I inspired her or what. I know it's not a funny story, but it was funny to me, be the only person there, like not scared and not wearing a mask. What's up, Christian Watson? I actually haven't worn a mask in over a year. Haven't put one on, not even for a moment. I don't need it. I'll risk it. I'll be fine. This one time at band camp, JP knows. Golf and guns. She give you a duck face. There's a lot of funny things I could say in reply to that, but we'll just say no. We'll just say no. I didn't have the $20 she was asking for it. V7 brand of beer. No, we're not gonna do a poll on that. All the hooligans know I'm either drinking Bell's or Bud Light or whiskey. Python. My beats remind you of old school Doom. That's kind of neat. I haven't heard that before. That's cool. I like my beats being like on the darker side, usually bass heavy. It's just my preference of how I like music. But that's an interesting reference. I'm actually making new beats. I just completed one last night. I should have some more added to the playlist soon. And all these beats, I believe, are available to listen to on like iTunes and stuff. I'm going to kind of touch them up and re-release them. All the old school beats that we listened to during the riots will be Riot Season 1. And then I think all the new beats together, I'll release as Riot Season 2. You won't be able to rap on them and stuff, but you can listen to them on the way to work if you want to get that tunnel vision, you know, from that PTSD we all gained from watching a year of riots. Newton, did you pay her in forever stamps? I made it rain. You bust out them forever stamps, they just start getting naked. That's terrible. You hooligans. This is your fault. Trump did it, okay? Trump did it. Thanks for being here, Tampa guy. Yeah, I totally planned on covering the trial. I mean, it's really crazy to be a live streamer in this kind of way and hang out with all you hooligans and stuff, because we see so much stuff live, and then a couple months later we're covering the follow-up, the trial, the results of what we seen live. It's like being a witness without being subpoenaed. It's interesting. Jesse, does the prosecutor look like Justin Hammer from Iron Man 2? I do not know who that is. I don't know actors' names and stuff. I don't know that. You gotta be like this one guy from this one movie who had this kind of hair or whatever. That's the only way I know people. Kevin, your brother drinks mead. There's a lot of people here that drink mead. There's actually a mead brewery, I guess you would call it, or a winery. Probably about 20 minutes south of me. Stopped in there not too long ago. Had a little mead tasting social gathering and whatnot. Actually, now I think about it, that might have been before the plague. Maybe it was a little bit longer than I was thinking. Mead's okay. It's all right. It's not all of it though. There is some mead out there that is really hard to put down. That is it's hard to swallow. Liberty Sweetheart, no, I have not watched any of the press briefings or C19 briefings or Old Man Walter. I have not seen or heard any of that since week before last. Pretty much since the Kyle trial has been on, I haven't really witnessed anything else going on in the world. Gang of Four, what about grog? Nope, I don't think I've ever had that. What's up, Sage Pup? Oh yeah, that's what I was going to tell you guys. I was sitting here waiting. Earlier in this live stream, since we've been back since lunch, for some reason, all of a sudden I was unable to write in the chat. It told me that the chat was for subscribers only, which is a setting that I set, and that I was unable to participate in the chat because I wasn't subscribed, although it will not let me subscribe to my own channel. And then as I messed with this while trying to play it off like I wasn't having like a mental breakdown while I'm running this live stream, YouTube also signed me out of my account. And so while we were all live and watching Bicep Guy dig himself a nice big hole, I was like signed out and signing back in and unable to participate in my own chat. I thought they deleted me and it just hadn't gone all the way through yet. Needless to say, my beehole was extra tight for those few moments there, but it seems like everything's going well now, so you know, that's good stuff. Just I wanted to tell you guys I forgot. Yup. And then I had to go use the bathroom really quick, had to run, thought I was safe to take a pee. Oh hell no, they bring out a whole AR and hold it up in front of the screen while I'm gone. Hopefully I survive that. It's hard. It's a hard job. It wouldn't be so hard if it wasn't for all the damn censorship. It's killing me. It's killing me. Red Zot, what'd you miss today? If you just got here, you missed quite a bit, and most of it was Bicep Guy digging himself a gigantic hole as he was admitting to multiple incidents, I guess, of him breaking the law himself and not really being able to prove a point that Kyle was a threat to anyone other than the people attacking him. That's probably the biggest thing that you missed today, if you're just getting here. Yeah, can you guys believe it? YouTube tried to unsubscribe me from my own channel. It didn't work out. It didn't work out. And they'll deny it if I ask them about it, but these assholes out here. Jason, nobody's supposed to show pew-pews. If you go into the YouTube community guidelines and you look under a live stream, you are not supposed to be showing pew-pews. If you see people doing that on a live stream within 3 to 5 days, you'll hear them crying that they got a strike or their channel was deleted or something or other. I don't know why people insist. I mean, not saying that you're doing this, but there is a lot of people that try and insist that I'm the one doing it, that by choice I'm not showing you guys firearms, which is ridiculous, because anybody that's been with me for a long time, we used to watch our live streamers catch shell shock. They would get hit with stun grenades and they would grunt and like lean really hard and go through the motions of the psychological reaction to being hit with an explosive. And we used to watch that live, and I used to have to tell people in the chat to chill out, because if this person on the screen dies, we're going to have to watch someone else. And now there's people telling me, oh, you're censoring stuff. Are you kidding me? We would watch the most terrible things if I was allowed to show it, just because we're here to show the truth. That's it. We're not here to manipulate what's being shown. That's YouTube stuff. The ramen. Court TV, I don't know if Court TV has a channel on YouTube. Court TV is their own website. So, I mean, they could show whatever they want on their own website. What you see on YouTube, so like if Fox shows it, Yahoo Finance, they're big enough to get through it. They can get through it. So anybody less than the mainstream media can't survive it. And you'll see it all the time. I didn't really come into contact with it until the hearing started for election irregularities. When that started, before old man Walter got into office, I was showing the same hearings that Fox was showing, that Right Side Broadcasting was showing, that pretty much everybody was showing, where Rudy Giuliani would go into court and talk about irregularities. And I was getting all kinds of strikes and stuff for it out of nowhere, because there was just a overnight change to the community guidelines, and I was getting banned. Or I wasn't getting banned, obviously, because I'm here, but I was getting strikes and penalized for it. And so I would write the customer service for YouTube, which is Google customer service, and explain these things. And they would put me in a position where I either have to tell on other channels, like say, hey, these channels over here are showing it, but you're disciplining me for showing the same thing, or just send them screenshots. Like, this is a courtroom. I can't tell a judge what he can or cannot say. It's not up to me. And in the end, most of the videos, they lifted the strike. After you get 3 strikes, they delete your channel. They lifted the strike in most cases, but there were certain cases where they wouldn't. And now Right Side Broadcasting is so big, they're so popular that they're starting to get beyond the strikes too, except for Trump events. If I show Trump events, I can only show it on alternative platforms because YouTube does not allow Trump at all. They hate Trump. Right Side Broadcasting will still continue to show Trump on YouTube, but they always get a strike for it. Always. You'll see them post on Twitter and stuff, hey, we just got a strike on like a Wednesday for showing Trump on Saturday. and now they can't stream for 10 days or however long it takes them to get their attorneys to send in enough, threats or whatever to get YouTube to take away the strike. It's ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous the way that they operate. I've had them lift a strike and had customer service send me an I'm sorry letter telling me that they're sorry that they can't lift the strike that the platform already lifted. This whole deal is ran by an algorithm, not people. YouTube is AI. What's up, CC? Thank you so much, RV Sarah, for your donation and your support. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much, Aquarius. I really appreciate you and all the support. Thank you for being here. What's up, Gizbo? Yeah, I still make music. I haven't made any rap videos or anything in a very long time. I would like to get back into it. It's hard. I'm live all the time, and I got to worry about what I say because of being involved in political environment. People are very, 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 very sensitive. Very sensitive. If you go to any of my old videos, any old lives, I don't care if it's last week's lives, you will see so many people complaining in the comments section because either I didn't respond to them or my response wasn't the right selection of words, or the way I wore my glasses, or the way I didn't brush my hair, or whatever. People are super sensitive when it comes to politics. And so I'm honestly scared to death to release any rap music because people are so quick to think that you're saying some subliminal message or that your intent is one way or another based on their feelings. It is rough stuff.
All right. You may proceed, Mr. Binger.
May I proceed, Judge?
All right, it's Beer 30 Hooligans.
Antaramian.
I do.
Could you state your name for the record and spell your last name?
Detective Ben Antaramian, Antaramian.
How are you currently employed?
I'm a detective with the City of Kenosha Police Department.
How long have you been with the Kenosha Police Department?
10 years and some change now.
And how long have you been a detective?
About 3.5 years.
And do you recall what your assignment was on the evening of August 25th, 2020?
We were in a modified role, whereas traditionally we're investigators. We were initially assigned at the beginning of the shift to go to local gas stations and ensure that their pumps were turned off to prevent further fires that night.
When you say we, who is the we?
Detective Howard and I believe Detective Valeri was also with us.
Is that Detective Brandy Valeri?
Yes, sir.
And so other than going to the gas stations, did you have any other assignments that evening?
We were just assisting in general patrol. Any areas that needed help, we'd respond over and just see what they needed. People who were being taken into custody, we'd assist with that as well.
Now, I think we're all aware that beginning on Sunday night, August 23rd, after the shooting of Jacob Blake, there was a lot of unrest in Kenosha that continued on Monday night. What was the law enforcement response and planning and whatnot for Tuesday night, if you know?
By Tuesday night, and this comes from, I wasn't directly involved in the planning, obviously, that's way above my position, but generically speaking, by Tuesday night, we had multiple agencies that responded. The National Guard had arrived. So we had multiple, we call them pieces of armor, but Bearcats and MRAPs that were available to us. So by then, there was a more organized response. We had active patrol assignments, and we had dedicated areas of responsibility. We were able to respond more effectively to the bigger calls that Monday and Sunday we were able to respond to, but not as appropriately as we normally would.
And if you would please slow down a little bit for Madam Court Reporter.
Apologies.
The most important person in the room. Except for the judge, of course.
Gay. Cheers, hooligans.
Detective, if there were situations that Tuesday night where there was some sort of report or a 911 call in some other part of Kenosha other than this downtown area, was the Kenosha Police Department equipped to handle those types of calls?
Absolutely.
I want to focus in on the downtown area, and there's that map that we've all been referring to. What was the logistical, the strategic plan, I guess, the tactical plan for handling any issues that arose in that area, the downtown area, on that particular night, if you know?
Again, speaking more generically, as it's not my pay grade, but we had dedicated SWAT teams along with, we call them CDIRT, but essentially a riot team. We had dedicated units that were assigned to respond to specific calls. So if there was a fire, we'd have a dedicated SWAT team or SWAT response along with a riot team to ensure that whatever problem we had could be properly handled.
Is it fair to say that during a part of that evening there was also a large number of police officers that were here outside the courthouse?
Correct.
The other units that you've just described, were they separate from the people that were out in front of the courthouse?
Yes, those were auxiliary personnel.
And you mentioned if there was a fire. So, for example, if the 59th Street car source or the 63rd Street car source had a structure fire or a house fire along in one of those areas or something like that, was there enough resources in law enforcement to respond to something like that?
To the best of my knowledge, there were, yes.
What about if there were smashed out car windows? Was that something that the law enforcement was going to come in and respond to?
No, unless it was a threat to life, we weren't going to be going at that point.
Is it fair to say that the response depended on the type of crime, the type of report that needed to be handled?
Correct.
So if it was just property damage, like broken windows or something like that, was that something that police were going to respond to?
Not at that time, no, not emergent.
What if it were a threat to life, such as a house fire or a shooting or a serious violence incident, something like that? Were there enough resources that night for the police to come in and respond as quickly as possible?
Correct, there were.
We've heard a lot of testimony in this case about the defendant shooting people that night. I want to put that aside. Other than that, was anyone else killed here in Kenosha as part of all these protests, riots, civil unrest, whatever you want to call it, on the night of August 25th?
No one else was killed that night.
Was anyone else seriously injured?
To the best of my knowledge, no.
You've described a little bit of your personal assignments that evening. Did there come a time in which your responsibility changed?
Yes, there was a time when that changed.
Tell us about that.
So around 11:49 p.m., there were multiple calls for shots fired in the area of 63rd Street and Sheridan Road. Initially, officers were, they believed to be chasing the involved parties who were involved in the shooting, west and south. So it'd be off screen, but there's a minimum security prison closer to 65th and 14th. The foot pursuits had generally gone that way. So we were tasked with assisting with the perimeter that was established to try and catch those people.
I want to stop you for a second because I believe you mentioned there was a report of a shooting at 63rd and Car Source. Is that right?
Correct.
Or 63rd and Sheridan, which is the Car Source, right? And we now know that's the killing of Joseph Rosenbaum. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
Other than that, did Kenosha police respond to other unrelated shootings in that area at that same time?
Yes, so as that unfolded, we received more reports for shots fired, and as you've seen in the videos and heard, it continued. But essentially there was what was believed to be a an exchange of gunfire, and I believe it's Bain Park, which is just west of the car source location at 6226 Sheridan Road.
Can you use that laser pointer and point out that park that you just described? Okay. And what is the name of that park?
I believe it's Bain Park.
And that's basically located between 10th and 11th Avenues and 62nd and 63rd Street. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
Okay. And do you know whether or not there actually was any sort of shooting over there?
There were shots fired. In terms of someone hurt, we never received reports of anyone injured by gunfire in that area.
Do you know whether or not that had anything to do with the events in this case?
I do not believe it had anything to do with this case.
Is it fair to say, though, that while there was a need for a response to the shooting of Joseph Rosenbaum, other law enforcement resources were also trying to deal with that other incident simultaneously?
Correct. There were multiple squads. I believe there was actually a piece of armor that was utilized. There's like a daycare just behind the car source, and there were reports that a shooter had run into there. So, I mean, there was a large amount of police personnel in that area.
Now, you mentioned that at some point in the evening your responsibilities changed, and I know you were talking about the 63rd and Sheridan shooting. Did there come a time in which you, as a detective, were assigned to handle that investigation?
Shortly after midnight, I was given the news that I'd be the lead investigator assigned to this, along with Detective Howard.
And is it fair to say that since then you two have been the primary investigators in this case?
Correct.
Do you recall when it was that you learned that the person who had done those shootings was the defendant, Kyle Rittenhouse?
Within a few hours, we were aware that it was Kyle Rittenhouse.
Did there come a time in which you and Detective Howard went down to the Antioch Police Department to meet with him?
Yes.
Did you determine how old Mr. Rittenhouse was on that particular day?
Yes, on the night of August 25th, 2020, he was 17 years old.
And his date of birth is January 3rd, 2003. Is that correct?
Correct.
As part of your investigation, did you take possession of the firearm that was involved, that the defendant used to shoot Mr. Rosenbaum, Mr. Huber, and Mr. Grosskroitz?
Yes, I took possession of it down in Antioch, Illinois, at their police department.
And I have, could you hold up that firearm?
Eric, no, I don't believe that Kyle's been in jail. He's been on bond for a while, as far as I know.
I'm having Detective Howard hold up a weapon that has been marked as exhibit number 28. You don't need to bring it to him, just if you could show it to him. Do you recognize that, Detective Antaramian?
Yeah, that's the firearm in question.
Is that the weapon that Mr. Rittenhouse used to shoot Joseph Rosenbaum, Anthony Huber, and Gage Grosskroitz on the night of August 25th, 2020?
Yes, sir.
And is it in substantially the same condition as it was when you took possession of it?
Yeah, that I would call it an optic, but the sight that was separated from it, when I took possession of it, that was still attached. I had to remove it so we could fit it into one of those gun boxes.
Detective Howard, could you hold that up one more time, please? I'm sorry. Making you use a lot of gloves here. I apologize.
Thank you for being here, Mike.
If you could just hold that up so the jury can see it, please. Right there is fine. Thank you. Detective Antaramian, did the weapon that we are looking at here, did it have that strap attached to the butt when you took possession of it?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. After you took possession of the defendant's weapon, what investigation, if any, did you do to determine whether or not that was actually the weapon used in these shootings?
So later on after that night, I believe it was the 28th, we had the weapon taken to what's called a NIBIN facility down in Chicago. N-I-B-I-N. I couldn't tell you exactly what the acronym stands for, but it's they test ballistics.
Can you bring that microphone really close so we can hear
Yeah,
it?
sorry about that.
That's okay.
So we took it to a NIBIN. Essentially, it was a trailer that the ATF had established down in Chicago. So we took it down there and handed it over to the NIBIN technicians, who subsequently test fired the firearm, and they were able to correlate that the casings we had recovered at that time, it was 6 casings, did in fact come from that firearm.
And I think there's been some testimony that maybe the next day on the 29th, there were 2 more casings that you found, or Detective Howard found, for a total of 8?
Correct.
And those 8 spent shell casings were also given to Heather Williams, who testified earlier at the crime lab, to verify that information as well. Is that right?
Correct. So NIBIN typically won't give you a final report. They'll give you what they believe to be accurate, but then the crime lab has to actually confirm that information.
So then you had Heather Williams at the crime lab verify that the shell casings, the 8 shell casings, came from the defendant's gun. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
Prior to having the defendant's gun brought to NIBIN or the crime lab, was the swabbing done to see if there's DNA on the gun?
Yes, the firearm was turned over to an evidence technician who performed the standard evidentiary DNA swabs they take from the firearm.
And that was Officer Jeff Van Wee?
Correct.
Is it possible for additional DNA testing to be done on an item in a case, a gun, a phone, any sort of physical item later on in the case?
Yes.
After that initial swabbing was done, did you ever receive a request from the defendant or his attorneys to have additional DNA testing done on the gun?
Judge, I'm going to object. Bird shifting. I didn't hear what you said. You were objecting why? I'm sorry.
That's right. I should use my microphone. It's burden shifting.
Rephrase your question.
I'll ask it this way, Detective Antaramian. After the first swabs were done by Officer Van Wee, did you ever receive a request from anyone to have additional swabs done on any part of that gun?
No.
If you had received such a request, would you have followed through with that?
Yes.
We've heard some testimony about an item that was recovered from Mr. Grosskroitz. Detective Howard, if you could locate that for us, please.
Was it his bicep? Did you guys find it? They said he lost it.
What is the exhibit sticker on there? 61. This is an item which has already been introduced into evidence as exhibit number 61. Do you recognize that item?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what it is?
My wiener.
And I'm not an expert on this, but those are devices used by both our SWAT team and then our CEDART or riot teams. They're typically referred to as like a gas bomb, if you will, in layman's terms, but it's like a nerve gas, non-lethal, that is used to disperse crowds.
Is this a device that is used by law enforcement?
Yeah, some people would also call it tear gas.
Is this a device that a common layperson could create on their own at home?
No, I don't believe so.
Is this device, when it was recovered from Mr. Grosskroitz, had it already been used? Was it no longer capable of emitting any gas?
Based off my observations, it was already spent.
Go ahead. Yeah, thank you. Could we please have exhibit number 10 pulled up?
The big guy's comb over is just getting thinner and thinner. He should just cut that shit off. The Homer Simpson ain't working.
Put it back. Yeah, it's right here. Oh, is it? Sorry, put it back on your desk.
Now, Detective, as part of the investigation in this case, did you and Detective Howard work to acquire video that was recorded by various people of the shootings?
Yes.
And do you recognize the video that's up on the screen?
It looks like one of those, yes.
Okay, and this is the recorded by someone called Ford Fisher, News to Share. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. Could we begin playing this video? I'm going to have it stopped here in just a second, but let's go ahead.
All the live streamers could be famous after this. I think that guy needs a medic.
Does this video show the immediate aftermath of the defendant's killing of Joseph Rosenbaum?
It appears so, yes.
I'd move Exhibit 10 into evidence.
Is there objection? No. Received.
I can't believe we used to watch rioting like that every night, and now it's just gone. There's no more protesting. It's so weird. Strange how that works. They must not need it right now. Judge is like, how much longer are we gonna keep screwing around with this before we just call it? How many more shitty witnesses do you got? Come up here and prove self-defense before we call it a day. Andrew, they fixed the racism. Is that what happened? That must be why we haven't seen protesting or anything like that lately. They must have fixed it. That's got to be what it is.
Okay, and then finally, Detective, can we please pull up, I think it's Exhibit 73. Is that the one I gave you? Before we begin that video, Detective, at some point in the investigation, did you become aware of the fact that there was drone video that someone had recorded? If you know.
Yeah, early on, I don't know the exact date, but early on we did see on a news segment, I believe it was a Fox News segment, that there was drone footage that we hadn't found at that point in time.
Do you have any idea what the source of that drone footage was?
I believe it was accredited to Urban Aired.
I have on the screen a video which has been marked as exhibit number 73. Is this that footage that you're referring to?
It appears so.
Okay. Can we please play that for the jury?
Well, that's a neat angle of self-defense.
Detective, just to help everybody understand, that was footage taken from a position south of the 63rd car source lot looking north into the lot. Would that be roughly accurate to say?
Yeah, it'd be right around that area, looking northbound.
And does that show the shooting of Joseph Rosenbaum?
Yes.
Okay. I would move Exhibit 73 into evidence. I have no further questions.
Mr. Dino, did I see the face palm? You talking from the big guy?
Did you, I know that you've shown us the gun. Did you ever measure the barrel on that gun?
I never personally measured it. I believe on the E-trace form that I think Officer Van Week performed on, it would show that barrel length there. But I never personally did.
It's not a short, you don't believe it's a short barreled rifle, do you?
No, I do not.
Now, you were asked some questions initially by Mr. Binger about if anybody else was killed that evening. During those time of those riots, there were people that had been seriously injured, correct?
Yes.
Law enforcement officers had been seriously injured, is that right?
Correct.
One officer was struck in the face with a brick. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And then a man who came out to help that officer, somebody had filled I think it was a bottle with cement and hit that person in the face. Is that right? Breaking his jaw?
I don't have firsthand knowledge of that aspect, but the brick one I know for a fact.
In terms of, I'm going to ask you this question. One of the things in your role as a detective was you had gotten information regarding a specific group called Armed Citizens to Protect Our Lives and Property. Is that right?
Correct.
And that video or that Facebook post listed specifics, August 25th, 6 p.m., things like that, right?
It was like a Facebook group meeting.
Okay. Your report indicates there are no indications in the email that Kyle Rittenhouse liked or showed interest in the Facebook post or the group itself, correct?
Correct.
And you've been present for all the testimony, is that right?
I have.
And so you heard some of the questions regarding Detective Howard, regarding kind of what your role as a detective is, right?
Yeah.
You don't work for Mr. Binger, do you?
No, I do not.
If I said that a detective is really kind of a truth seeker, you don't care which way the evidence goes, you just want to get it right. Would that be fair?
Yeah, throughout the investigation, we referred to ourselves as the fact finders.
So you're not supposed to, and I'm not saying you are, you're not supposed to take sides, correct? You're just supposed to, wherever the evidence leads you, you go.
Correct. We remain neutral.
So when you arrived, I know that you said you arrived at the Antioch Police Department. It was about what time, if you remember?
I honestly don't recall. It was a long night.
Early in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like 3 or 4 in the morning? Sound about right?
That would sound about right, yes.
And at that point, can you tell me what, if anything, you had reviewed in the way of evidence?
We had seen at that point, I believe, 2 videos that were circulating on social media that were pretty grainy, shared secondhand. You know, we really didn't have the original source of it that showed, I believe, the first shooting of Joseph Rosenbaum, and then I want to say the next 2 as well in separate clips.
At that point, you didn't have any, because of the time, you didn't have any, no statements had been taken yet, as far as you knew, correct?
None that were relayed to me.
And obviously at that point, none of the forensic work or anything like that certainly was maybe being collected, but it wasn't completed.
Correct.
Okay. And this was even before Gage Grosskroitz's interview with police. True?
Yeah, because first shift conducted that, and that'd be sometime after 6 or 7 a.m. The interview with Mr. Grosskroitz occurred somewhere after 6 or 7 a.m. when day shift came on. So our interactions down in Antioch were closer to 3 or 4 a.m.
And you had, if I'm right, you had placed Mr. Rittenhouse under arrest for these offenses at about 6-ish in the morning?
That sounds about right.
Okay. And again, I'm not being critical. You had basically seen some grainy footage of the videos, and that's what you had at that point. Fair?
We had his admission that he had been involved in the shootings, and then, yeah, some video, absolutely.
And the next day, meaning the 27th, you are meeting with the DA's office to formalize charges against Mr. Rittenhouse, correct?
To draft a criminal complaint.
At that point, had you been made aware of or reviewed the statement by Richie McGinnis about what he had observed? Do you remember?
I don't recall if I saw that exact one yet. We really didn't sit down and read all the reports for at least a few days, given everything and how fluid the situation was.
Okay, so to be fair, he was charged prior to all of the information actually coming in, correct?
The criminal complaint was drafted prior to us concluding the investigation. I would agree with that.
And you and I might deal with warrants kind of on a regular basis. You ask for search warrants kind of in the regular course of your job, right?
Correct.
And so how it works is you write an application for a warrant, putting forth why you believe there's probable cause that the thing that you're looking to search will contain relevant information in your investigation, right?
Correct. Commonly referred to as an affidavit.
Okay. And you swear that affidavit out, right?
Correct.
And you present that to a judge, and the judge reviews that. If the judge reads it and says there's probable cause, then the judge will sign that warrant, and then you can execute it. Is that fair?
Correct.
Now, in this case, you drafted an affidavit to get the phone belonging to Gage Grosskroitz, right?
I don't know if it was me who drafted the affidavit or Detective Howard, but between the two of us, an affidavit was drafted, correct?
And that affidavit was presented to a Kenosha County judge
Correct.
who reviewed it and signed it. Is that
Correct.
right?
Yes, sir.
So you had a valid, in your mind, certainly, a valid reviewed it and signed it. Correct?
Correct.
I know there's been information or conversations about this Marcy's Law and things like that. You've been an officer for how long? 10 years?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever had a search warrant signed by a judge that you did not execute?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever had a search warrant that you did not execute in a homicide investigation?
I don't recall. It's possible. Sometimes you have warrants where you just maybe you realize you messed up an affidavit. There's been times I have not served an affidavit or a signed search warrant. I can't say with certainty whether or not it was on a homicide investigation, though.
If you don't execute it, is it most of the time because of what you just said, you believe there might be something faulty with the search warrant?
That's the common reason, but you can have times where new information comes forward and you determine you're not going to execute said search warrant.
Did new information come forward in this case as to why you would not execute a search warrant for Gage Grosskroitz's phone?
As was discussed previously, we were advised, given Marcy's law, it would not be ideal to execute that search warrant.
Who advised you of that?
I believe it was a conversation with the attorneys. I don't know who brought it up initially, though.
So when you say the attorneys, Mr. Binger was one of the attorneys?
I believe so, yes.
So, tell me if I'm right, the prosecutors in this case advised you not to execute the search warrant for Gage Grosskroitz's phone.
That sounds correct.
Have you ever had a prosecutor say to you, detective, you have a valid search warrant, don't execute it?
Not that I can recall, no. Beyond the previous one we just discussed.
Fair. Have you, since Marcy's law went into effect, and I want to say this improperly, have you ever relied on Marcy's law not to execute a search warrant since it's gone into effect?
We've had conversations in the aftermath, but I don't recall not searching one solely on that basis.
So this is, if I'm fair, it is called using Marcy's law as the basis for not doing it.
Correct.
And it's the only one that you recall ever getting a direction from a prosecutor handling the case not to do it.
Pursuant to Marcy's law, yes.
Okay. Now, you, being the lead detective on the case, you also had an opportunity to try to interview Gage Grosskroitz about a month or so.
September 24th.
Okay. And certainly he's an important, in your mind at that point, he's an important piece in the case, right?
Correct.
And so you set up a time to get his statement. Fair?
I don't think I was one that set it up, but there was an agreed upon meeting time, correct?
Had you already reviewed, if you recall, his original statement to Officer Birch?
Yeah, I had.
And had you reviewed the video in the case as well, involving Mr. Grosskroitz?
Yeah.
So you knew that he had lied about dropping his gun, correct?
There was definitely a discrepancy between what the video showed us and what his original statement to Officer Birch showed.
And when you interview Mr. Grosskroitz in September, once you kind of get to the meat and potatoes about what had happened with him, he refused to answer your questions. Is that right?
He consulted with his attorney, and yeah, we did not get all of our questions answered.
Look at the prosecutor. He looks like a dog that just pissed on the floor.
As you describe them, inconsistencies or discrepancies with his original statement? Did you have an opportunity to kind of talk to him about those?
I attempted to, yeah.
Would he answer those questions?
No.
No?
No, he would not, sir.
So is it fair that at that point the interview just kind of ended? He doesn't answer your questions. I'm assuming that at that point it's over?
For the most part, it sounds correct.
You asked for permission or consent to look through his phone. Is that right?
Correct.
And you did that for multiple people in this case. Did you not ask for permission?
Yes, we asked many people.
And there's actually a form that you use that they sign that grants you permission to do that, right?
Correct.
Okay. And in this particular case, did he ever give you permission to look through that phone?
No, he did not.
There was, and you've heard about this skateboard in this case, the skateboard belonging to Anthony Huber, right?
Correct.
Okay. Do you know a person, when I mean know, are you aware of a person named Hannah Giddings?
Yes, I am.
And that is was Mr. Huber's girlfriend?
Correct.
You were informed that Ms. Giddings had that skateboard. Is that right?
I'm going to object. Calls for hearsay.
It sounds like hearsay.
Were you, I'll ask it to you this way then. Did you ever request a search warrant to get that skateboard?
No, we never had a solid idea as to where it was.
Did you ever ask any potential witness if he or she might have it?
We were in communication with Hannah Giddings to try and obtain that skateboard, yes.
And I don't want you to tell me what she said, but based on the information that you had, do you think that you had a basis to get a search warrant for it?
No, because one of the aspects of a search warrant is you have to define where you're going to search, and without a solid location that would determine that, I wouldn't have enough for a search warrant.
Did you ever ask her to just turn it over?
Yes, we did.
Do you have it?
It's not in our evidence, and I don't personally have it now.
I'm sorry, that's kind of what I meant. You were asked by Mr. Binger about if anybody asked you to do any other DNA testing on that gun, right?
Correct.
Now, he can make that request, right? Mr. Binger, detective.
Correct.
Okay, did he ever do that?
No, he did not.
You were aware that Richie McGinnis had made statements about whether or not Joseph Rosenbaum ever grabbed or touched the barrel of that gun, right?
I believe based off his statement, he described it as him juking away from him, so there was no indication that there was contact.
So based on the fact that, well, I'll ask it to you this way. You didn't tell Officer Van Wee where to swab, right?
Correct, I did not.
And would there be any harm in swabbing the barrel of that gun looking for DNA?
When you say harm, the crime lab limits us to swab submissions on the front end. So traditionally, we have a standard operating procedure for firearms. So I don't feel comfortable saying harm. We have a standard procedure, and that's what we followed.
Okay. How about you wanted to look through Mr. Rittenhouse's phone, correct?
Correct. Either me or Detective Howard, yes.
All right, and I think the evidence or the testimony has been that the make or model of the phone that he had would have made that impossible at that point without him giving you the key or the code.
Yeah, the iOS, the software in the phone was beyond decryption.
And he voluntarily provided you information that unlocked a phone that you would otherwise not have had an opportunity to look at, right?
It came in through the attorneys, correct.
Okay. Now, you have described in your interviews with witnesses the night of the 24th and the night of the 25th as the most chaotic days of your professional life. Is that fair?
I'd include the 23rd, but 23rd and 24th.
So those days, 23rd, 24th, 25th, most chaotic days that you've had as a detective or a police officer even?
Correct.
Okay. So it's Exhibit 39. You've seen this picture? Yes, it's an evidence. So that gentleman, body's cut off, but with the camo pants on, that's Joseph Zeminski, right?
Joshua
Zeminski, right?
Yeah, on the left-hand side.
Right, and his wife is pointing at him. That's Kelly?
Kelly Zeminski, or Kelly Dunn.
Okay, fair enough. And he's, I don't know, you see that he's holding a pistol in his right hand?
Agreed.
Okay. Now, you see him, if you're comfortable saying this, you see him throughout the evening, throughout your investigation in various videos and things like that, correct?
Correct.
Conduct an interview with Mr. I don't want you to tell me what he said. Did you conduct an interview with Mr. Zeminski?
Yeah, Detective Howard and I interviewed him.
Did you attempt to locate that pistol?
Yes.
Were you able to locate that pistol?
No. Did you hear me?
Yeah, you said that you were unable.
We were unable to locate that pistol, correct.
Why wasn't it?
He had reported it stolen prior to our interview with him,
So it was gone.
according to him.
Now, have you have, is it fair to say as the lead detective or one of the lead detectives, I don't want to take anything away from Detective Howard, that you have reviewed all of the videos in this case?
I have not personally, no.
No?
No, between the two of us.
Split them up, kind of?
He did the bulk of the video investigation.
Okay. Have you seen the video with Joseph Rosenbaum screaming, "Shoot me," and then saying the N-word?
I have seen that video, yes.
Okay. Have you observed, in a minute, this is 70. I'm going to show you what has been marked as Exhibit 74. Take a peek at that. Does that appear to be the backside of Joseph Rosenbaum?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Bring it up. Okay. Well, it's coming then. And does it appear that Mr. Rosenbaum, it looks like he's moving, right? Like he's walking?
Yeah, I'd like to see it in motion to say it with certainty, but
Is that a video or a still? Okay. He's carrying in his, what would be there, his left hand, what looks like a chain, is that right?
correct.
Based on the testimony that you've heard, he didn't have anything to lock up that evening, did he? As far as you know?
As far as I don't know.
Okay. Going to show you Exhibit 75. And Judge, I would move 74. I don't think I did. No. See? 75, is that a picture of Joseph Rosenbaum there in the middle?
It looks like it, but the lighting's really bad. It almost looks like he has a red sleeve on him. So I don't want to say with certainty.
So you're not certain that that person right there with the mask over his face is Joseph Rosenbaum?
The mask is consistent with what I saw him wearing in the latter half of the night, but just based off the lighting there, I'm a little hesitant to say with 100% certainty.
That's the Taliban. We're allies now, don't you know?
Can you bring that back up for a second? Does it appear to be fair that he's holding a bag?
Appears so, yeah.
Okay, so, and we've heard a million times that Joseph Rosenbaum had a bag.
Correct.
Okay, so the bag fits and the mask fits Joseph Rosenbaum, right?
It does.
Okay. Are you aware that Mr. Rosenbaum was pushing lit dumpsters into the street? Have you seen that?
Yeah, I've seen that.
It's right. Tell me if you recognize or remember seeing.
I wish I could be an attorney so bad. One, my criminal record's too bad, and two, I'm just too damn hilarious to be an attorney. You see him looking at the computer guy, he's like, "You suck, buddy. You're terrible at your job."
Okay, just play it.
All rise. This is the lead detective that's being interviewed right now.
That's Joseph Rosenbaum, who was pushing the lit dumpster in the street, right? You see him right there?
Yep, he's on the right-hand side of the screen,
Okay.
T-shirt on.
Okay, and so you see him, you're aware that he's screaming racial epithets, you're aware that he's got the chain, he's pushing dumpsters. You also see that he tipped over a porta potty, right?
I don't remember ever seeing that personally, but that's been relayed to me, yes.
You,
That's been relayed to me. I don't remember seeing it personally, though.
you didn't see this in your investigation?
Downstairs.
So you saw him pushing over the porta potty. Would you agree that his behavior is that of somebody who is acting like a rioter?
I'm going to object, Your Honor.
It's just a characterization the jury can decide for themselves
Can you read it?
to the extent that they need to do so.
Sorry.
Repeat the question.
You don't have to answer the question.
Okay.
Do you sustain the objection, Jeff?
I sustain the objection.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. You also heard Carrie Ann Swart talk about him carrying an empty water bottle around with him, or multiple water bottles with him, right?
I remember hearing one. I don't remember hearing multiple.
Okay. And that you remember her telling us, meaning us in court, that she took it with him when he left, right?
He took it with him when he left.
Yep.
Yes.
And are you aware that there's been indications that homemade gas bombs were made from water bottles that evening?
I have heard that, correct.
Now, can you bring up the FBI video? So this is, what's the number on this? It's the same one.
Why you guys keep trying to tag Nightbot? Nightbot is not going to write back to you guys. Christian Watson, yes, I've been to jail a lot. Going to jail does not make you a criminal. It just means you were accused of a crime.
And this is the FBI fixed wing video, right?
Correct.
Okay. So, go ahead.
It's up. It's up.
Okay, stop it. Now, we all, I think, have agreed, this blue circle is Joseph Rosenbaum, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So, to be fair, there's been talk about whether or not Mr. Rittenhouse was chasing down Mr. Rosenbaum. What you see here is Mr. Rosenbaum, and I'm not saying that he actually physically ducks, but he ducks in between two vehicles to let Mr. Rittenhouse pass him. Is that right?
I'm going to object, Your Honor. It's a cause for speculation, and I think the jury can watch the video and draw their own conclusions.
It really is speculative because you're asking the motive of the decedent as to why he took the path that he did, and you're asking the officer to comment on it.
Then I'll withdraw the question and rephrase it. Very good. You would agree that Mr. Rosenbaum steps out of the path that he had been traveling and in between two vehicles, right?
I'm going to object, Your Honor. Same objection.
No, overruled. I mean, it may be the same objection, but it's overruled instead.
So you see him step between the two vehicles, yes?
He is walking southbound, and then he ends up going south-southwest, and ends up, I don't know if I'd say between the two cars based off what I'm seeing, but it's hard to tell with that blue circle, but he's definitely off the path he was currently traveling on.
Okay, and the other, play the video if you can. And when Mr. Rittenhouse passes him, he then comes out from the area by the two cars and is now back traveling this way, right?
Once the white dot is south of those cars, the blue dot appears to come north-northeast slightly, then continue southbound.
And Kelly Zeminski and her husband are right there, correct?
When you say right there, they're the green and pink dot, I would say.
Yeah, so they're right next to, or the two closest people to Mr. Rittenhouse and Mr. Rosenbaum, right?
At that time, it appears so, yes.
Okay. Did you hear, I don't know if it's been played yet, did you hear a portion of a tape? So we know Kyle Rittenhouse says, or you believe that you hear friendly, friendly, friendly. That's been discussed, right?
I haven't said that, but it's been said, yes.
What also was testified to by Detective Howard was gun, 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 you ain't gonna do shit, motherfucker, right?
You won't do, I think, is what is said, but something along those lines, yes.
And we know that's from Rosenbaum.
I'm going to object, Your Honor. There's no evidence on that.
He testified that it was that he said it.
That's different than we know. If he wants to ask this detective what this detective thinks, but ultimately it's a jury question.
You're saying that Detective Howard said that?
Yes.
That was his opinion as to who was the speaker.
Did you listen to that tape?
I hear those phrases. I don't know if I could confidently say who says what, though.
At this point, then, have you listened to the tape and have you heard the phrase, get him, get him, get him?
I have not heard that, no.
You haven't heard that?
No.
And that would be right before Joshua Zeminski shoots the firearm in the air.
Your Honor, he just answered he hasn't heard it, so how can he say when it happened? The detective just said he hasn't heard these words. The next question is, those words happen at a certain time. The detective's already said he hasn't heard it, so.
Why does the prosecutor look like he's going to cry?
It's your testimony that you do not hear someone say, get him, get him, get him.
This question's been asked 3 times.
I want to make sure that is that true?
I have not heard that, correct.
I want you to listen to the tape and tell me if you can hear that. Do it again. I want you to listen to that, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Who the hell edited that video? Like, what the hell are we watching?
Something along those lines, but I couldn't confidently say that's get him. But it's definitely the same phrase repeated 3 times.
And do you see Mr. Rosenbaum then chase Mr. Rittenhouse through the parking lot, right? You don't dispute that?
No.
Okay. Do you hear, and have you heard the videos where the one gentleman says, cranium that boy?
Yeah, I've heard that.
Okay, what does that mean to you?
I would assume it's someone talking about hitting someone in the head is my best guess.
Okay. And you observe Mr. Rittenhouse speaking to Mr. Grosskroitz, right, after the shooting?
Correct.
Okay. Would you describe Mr. Grosskroitz based on your observations of him running after Mr. Rittenhouse?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. characterizing the video we've all seen. The jury can draw their own conclusions. Mr. Grosskroitz has already testified on this point.
Overruled.
Could you repeat what you asked, please?
Did you, based on your training and experience as a police officer, watching the videos, did it appear to you that Mr. Grosskroitz was chasing after the defendant? Chasing after Mr. Rittenhouse?
He was definitely running in the same direction.
Behind him?
Behind his path.
Okay.
No comment on the witness's answer, either orally or with facial reaction.
Very good. Thank you. What I want to ask you about, too, is there are multiple times, we've talked about the times that Mr. Rittenhouse has actually pulled the trigger, right?
Yeah.
You'd agree there are multiple times, based on the surrounding circumstances, that he doesn't pull the trigger, right?
I can think of one time for sure I've seen where, when you say he didn't pull the trigger, I don't. The gun may be pointed at someone.
You saw the video where the person, I showed it to Mr. Grosskroitz, the person runs up to Mr. Rittenhouse and then steps back, right?
Yes, I've seen
You saw
that. Correct.
And no shot fired.
Correct.
You saw other people that were kind of, it wasn't a 2 or 3 person chase. There were multiple people kind of around Mr. Rittenhouse, some of them brandishing weapons, correct?
There were people, and there were people that were armed, absolutely.
And those people who didn't attack him, he didn't fire at them, did he?
Correct.
The only people that he fired at were people that had either kicked him, hit him with something, or pulled a gun on him when he's running down Sheridan Road, right?
I would agree with that statement.
And after he, initially when he sees Gage Grosskroitz, you'd agree when Mr. Grosskroitz's hands are up, he doesn't fire.
Correct.
There's a person to Mr. Grosskroitz's, it would be his left, with a metal pipe. Do you remember that?
I know earlier we saw, you called it a wooden club. I don't know, I remember seeing a wooden, or fairly off the distance, there's a metal pipe, yes.
And so people who are armed, he doesn't fire at any of those people, does he?
Correct.
After the shooting, I counted, and I'm not asking you for the specific number, but there's multiple shots fired after Mr. Rittenhouse fires his last shot, right?
Correct.
I counted about 10, but there's multiple, right?
Agreed.
He never turns and fires in that direction, does he?
No.
So there, I think it was the video that Mr. Binger showed you, the drone footage. He showed you that on direct examination. Okay. Do you know where that came from? How you got it, or whether you got it? Do you know where it came from?
Someone turned it over to us.
And do you know when that was?
I want to say Friday late morning.
If you know, Hannah Giddings, was she in court while this hearing's been going on, this trial?
I believe I saw her today, but beyond that, I can't say with certainty beyond that.
So you believe she was here today?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Was there, don't take it as a criticism, was there any effort to get the skateboard, talk to her about that today?
No.
Thank you for your time.
Redirect.
Detective, this drone footage that we just showed the jury, the version that we showed the jury, did you and Detective Howard have any versions of that prior to Friday?
Not independently. We had, it was something attached to a news segment, so the video existed, but it wasn't in its raw form.
That was a news segment on Tucker Carlson on Fox News, do you know?
That sounds correct.
And that aired a couple days after the shootings, right?
I believe so.
And so ever since then, you've been trying to get the highest definition version of that video, is that right?
Correct.
And now we have it?
It appears so.
And after we got it on Friday, did you take a look at it?
A little bit, yeah.
And did you get a chance to look at it at home?
A little bit.
Okay. Did you were you able to zoom in and look at details of the defendant's actions in that video?
Yes.
What did you see?
So it appears that when the defendant comes around what we've been referring to as the Duramax vehicle, he deliberately, when I say deliberately, with caution and intentionally, sets down the fire extinguisher and then appears to bring his rifle up and point it in the direction of the Zeminskis.
Then what happens?
It's hard to tell based off where it was and based off what I was viewing it on, which was my work phone, so it wasn't the highest def. But it looks like Joshua Zeminski takes a couple steps towards him, and then at that point, the defendant starts to run, and then Rosenbaum follows.
Does the video also show the shooting, the killing of Mr. Rosenbaum?
It does.
And when you look at that video, how close does Mr. Rosenbaum appear to be to the defendant?
This is just going off of me looking at it again on a phone, but not closer than a few feet.
Not close enough to touch the defendant?
It does not appear so, no.
Now, I want to go back to the beginning of your testimony. You were asked about the process by which a criminal complaint was drafted in this case, and I think you said that that was done before the investigation was complete. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
Why would a criminal complaint be prepared before the investigation is complete?
It's not atypical for that to happen, especially in a major case, a homicide. There's a lot of legwork that has to be done, even when you know who did it. So in this case, we obviously knew who did it, but we have to get all the facts. So we'll typically, in this situation, because there was an extradition issue, the defendant was in Illinois and we needed him up here to be heard for court. We had to get a warrant entered in to have that done, which is why you typically would do an early probable cause statement versus waiting until the investigation completed.
Are there also time limits in terms of how long someone can be held in custody pending possible criminal charges?
Yeah, I believe it's 48 hours.
Is it fair to say that after the complaint was drafted and filed with the court that you continued to investigate the case?
Absolutely.
And Detective Howard did as well?
Correct.
Did any of the subsequent investigation you did, any of the new information you gathered, change your original referral to the district attorney's office for criminal charges against the defendant?
I haven't read the criminal complaint in a long time, so I can't say with certainty, but I don't recall any changing the grand scope.
You were asked questions about Gage Grosskroitz's phone. Without having possession of his phone, did you have access to his Facebook Live video?
We had a copy, but I don't believe it was the original copy.
Again, it was one of these things where it wasn't the highest possible resolution of it?
Yeah, I think someone used like a screen capture software program and saved a copy.
Based on what you saw in that Facebook Live video, do you feel like, without having his phone, you knew what Gage Grosskroitz had done that night before the defendant shot him?
In the immediate time beforehand, not the rest of the night, though.
You were asked some questions about Anthony Huber's skateboard. When you watch the videos of the defendant killing Anthony Huber, were you able to see that skateboard clearly?
Yeah.
Are you generally familiar with skateboards yourself?
No.
Have you ever ridden a skateboard?
No.
Do you know anyone who has?
It's actually irrelevant. He knows anybody that's ridden a skateboard.
What is the relevance?
Well, I think the point is we need this exact skateboard, and I'm exploring his familiarity with skateboards in general. Because once you've seen one, you've pretty much seen them all.
Racist.
Fair enough. You also were asked about, and there's been references in the testimony to some video in which Joseph Rosenbaum says, "Shoot me," followed by the N-word, "shoot me," followed by the N-word. I don't know that we've actually played those videos, but do you have any idea what was leading up to that?
It appears there was some back and forth in the parking or the service station at the southeast corner of 60th and Sheridan.
Was he upset because someone had shot a gun at him? Or, I mean, pointed a gun at him?
It appeared he alluded to that, yes.
Speculative. Disregard the answer, please.
You were asked questions about this empty plastic water bottle. That Mr. Rosenbaum had in his bag that night. Is that right?
Correct.
Do you have any indication that Mr. Rosenbaum ever created any sort of chemical bomb or ammonia and bleach bomb or anything like that night?
No.
Do you have any indication that at any point before he was killed by the defendant, there was anything in that bottle?
No.
When you see people carrying around empty plastic water bottles, does that suggest to you that they're about to commit a crime?
No.
You were asked some questions about the defendant's usage of his gun and the other people around after killing Joseph Rosenbaum, after killing Anthony Huber, after shooting Gage Grosskroitz. He gets up and he walks away from the scene, correct?
Correct.
You mentioned that there were some gunshots after that. What did the defendant do in response to those gunshots, if you know?
I don't recall.
Okay. I have nothing further.
You cross.
You turn around and look at that video for a second, if you would, Detective. I'm showing you 73. So this is the drone video that you say that you believe that you can see hold on a second. This video you think, make sure I'm right, you can see Mr. Rittenhouse pointing his firearm. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you see Mr. Rittenhouse at this point?
No.
Okay. Play it for a second. All right, stop. Do you see him yet? We're 1 second in.
So, just so you're aware, you can't do it with this program as far as I know, but like on my iPhone, my work iPhone, you can pinch to zoom.
So what the jury gets to see, we'll never see that, right?
If there's a way
All you gotta do is hit control and the plus sign and you'll be able to zoom, you idiots.
From this video that we have, what you've testified to is unobservable. Agree?
Off this view, absolutely.
Okay. Did you send the video to be enhanced in any way to like the crime lab or anything like that?
I haven't personally, no.
Do you know if anybody has?
I believe the prosecution
Is doing that now?
I believe so.
Okay. Sorry.
No, I'm talking to the district attorney.
Oh. So this is the video where hold on. That's Joseph Rosenbaum, right?
In the middle.
This gentleman right
Red
here?
shirt, black pocket.
Yep, this is him. Okay. Can you play the video, please?
Shoot me, nigga!
Behind him was who? It's not in the frame right now, but he was behind him a second ago.
Just can you go back just so I can confirm?
Sure.
I'm guessing it's Joshua Zeminski, but yeah, Joshua Zeminski.
Okay. Go ahead. Now, do you know, you have no idea why he's saying that, correct?
I don't know why he's saying that.
But we've established he's saying it in the guise or in the surroundings of a Black Lives Matter protest. Yes?
Agreed.
You had said that on this video that we don't get to see, you're able to see things in terms of how far away you believe Joseph Rosenbaum is, right? From
You're talking about the drone video?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know, in your training and experience as a detective, do you know what extreme stippling is?
I know stippling is related to when a gunshot occurs, but I couldn't say what extreme stippling is now.
What's stippling?
You're putting me on the spot here. It's I believe it's when gunpowder hits the skin, but
That you're close enough. So if somebody shoots, or if somebody is close enough to a gun when it's fired, the gases that come out of that gun burn the skin of that person, correct?
I'm going to object. This is beyond the scope of redirect, Your Honor.
Overall.
I don't know enough about it to say that that's the textbook definition, but it's definitely indicative of proximity to a fired gun.
Based on your investigation in this case, Joseph Rosenbaum had stippling on his body, correct?
Correct.
Through your investigation, do you know if Mr. Rosenbaum had stippling on his hand?
I'd have to see the medical examiner's report to say yes or no.
You don't have a recollection of that?
I don't.
Do you have a recollection of where you observed it?
I remember seeing it in the preliminary autopsy results, but I don't remember exactly where now.
It was a bad question. When I say where, I mean where on his body?
I don't remember, no.
I don't have anything else. Thank you, Detective.
Any redirect?
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Is he gonna rage quit, or is he talking to the computer guy? Was the prosecutor talking directly to Kyle? He's like, are you ready to just call it a win or what? Because he's like, I'm about out of options here.
Your Honor, I'm trying to locate the full video that was just shown to the jury there. Could I just have a minute to see if I can find that?
She says she's complaining about what she sees outside, and she says, I'm going to go home and put pajamas on right away. Hey, just think, it's only about 45 days, and the days will start getting longer.
What's up, Mayor? Thanks for being here. So far, it's been a whole bunch of word salad, except for watching Bicep Guy get up there and do a bunch of lying and nearly crying. He was getting worked over by both sides. He just looks like a flaming douchebag. That's probably the most eventful thing of the day so far. They don't know what to do now. They're just hanging out. What's up, Snooks?
As I indicated, the building is
They're all taking turns checking out our chat.
the last year they undertook a project to see how much of the damage could be reversed and what the cost would be. I was amazed.
Go ahead. No, we're getting set
No,
up. so-
I could go on for hours, as anyone who works here knows. But we'll.
I'm getting the rest of that video.
Okay.
There was an excerpt just played for the under the rule of completeness. I'd like to have the whole thing played, so I'm getting that ready to go.
Okay, let me know when you're ready.
Yep,
Don't
it
feel-
should be
don't-
in a couple seconds.
No, be quiet.
So, okay, this is the Twitter Julio Rosas, the Fight at Ultimate Gas Part 1. Can we play that, please?
The little guy in the red, he really wanted what he got. I hope he's happy wherever he is.
Hear someone say, "Don't point your gun at me."
See the smiling guy in the background on the right side of the screen? He totally like pointed the pistol into the crowd, like carelessly.
From there, please.
There's so many pew pews on the screen, I can't even flash what's going on here.
Did you hear someone just now say, "Don't point your motherfucking gun at me"?
I honestly didn't know.
Okay, let's play that back again, please. 10 more seconds, please. Go ahead. Did you hear it there?
I heard part of it, but I.
Okay, let's play this to the end, and then we'll play the next clip, which just to give the whole sequence. Now we're going to play part 2 of this.
For everybody crying in the chat, go read the YouTube community guidelines. I am not able to show firearms, medical procedures, or death on the screen during a live. Go read it. I know everybody talks about, all the gun review videos. Those people are not live. This is live. I cannot show that stuff on a live.
and this should be part 2 of that.
There's Yellow Pants guy.
Those are going to be marked as Exhibit 70.
What was the point of that feed anyways? What was the whole point of that?
Let me step down. What about it, folks? Time to go out into the dark of night. Please don't talk about the case over.
What is he, Batman?
Read, watch, or listen to any account of the trial. Mrs. Natasha Mentig, is she here? I'll go over to her, and I may as well go up to the jury room and enjoy the evening.
Their feed is rough today. All the prosecutor does is prove that it was a dangerous environment over and over again, and that Kyle was definitely in the right position to be defending himself. Well, that seems like it's it. We'll stick around for a little bit, see if we got some hot mics like that one day. The judge doesn't like the prosecutor. That nobody likes the prosecutor, basically. We don't like him. Everybody in the courtroom don't like him. He's on his own. Let's read off the poll that we have set up here. All right, you guys got 10 seconds to get them votes up. There's only 576 votes. There's plenty of room for more votes. If you ain't voted on the poll, you should go ahead and do that real quick before I read it off. His mom don't like him. Yep, that's probably why he ended up the way he is. He didn't get enough hugs when he was a kid. Now he has to get them from men that are strangers.
All right, now, Lieutenant, can you help me out? Lieutenant?
Soil tender, no, I don't know anything about that. Oh, they're not going to hot mic it. All right. So out of 607 votes, what is the prosecutor going to do when he leaves court today? 36% of people say he's going to cry in the car. 27% of people say he's going to get beat by his abusive boyfriend. 24% believe he's going to purchase meth from Antifa. 13% believes that he's going to accept that he's a failure and move on. That is this afternoon's poll. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate all of you. Let's give a shout out to all the very generous donations from the day. We're going to read the whole day's worth. Thank you so much, RV Sarah, Mark Hill, Brian. Mark Hill like a million times because he's so awesome. Maul. Andy. Annie, are you okay? Cookie Monster. Leonardo. Prim and Farrell. Kelly. Lisa. Aquarius. Boston Patriot. Look Who's Prepping Now, and Robin. Thank you so much for your donations and your support. I really appreciate you guys. and I wouldn't be able to do this without you. So thank you so much. Thank you, Norman. You're awesome. If you're new here, please subscribe, follow on whatever platform you're currently watching right now in order to be connected to the channel. Doing so will help you see what's going on around us. We go live nearly every day trying to show anything and everything that's happening around us, unedited as much as possible, as much as the community guidelines allow me to be. Also join the Discord. The Discord is the best way to stay notified for when and where we go live. It is the best way to stay up to date with news that is going on around you. If you check out our news board, there's tons of news constantly pouring in 24/7, and also all the hooligans are there hanging out and chatting 24 hours a day in the general chat. So definitely consider joining the Discord. Thank you guys so much for being here. With it being Monday, I really doubt anything's gonna be going on. It's already nearly 6 o'clock here Eastern time. If there is anything going on in the next few hours, we will try to cover it. Otherwise, I will see you guys tomorrow for another day of the Kyle trial. So thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate all of you. And until the next live, stand tall, shine bright, and that's a wrap.